Good evening. I'd like to call our regular business meeting to order and ask the treasurer to call the roll.
Here.
Present.
President Baker.
Present.
Mr. Brown. Here. Vice President Cole. Ms. Gibbs. Mr. Ragland. Here. Ms. Reyes. Ms. Reyes. You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. And because he is kind enough to be here to sit in this evening for our internal auditor, I'm going to call on Kevin O'Connor to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you wouldn't mind, if everyone would be upstanding for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
Thank you, President.
Colleagues, I'll read through our agenda just so we know the work we have before us this evening. We have a number of special recognitions, after which we'll hear public comment, and I may actually ask you to indulge me in reversing those two. We then will hear from our direct reports. With their reports, we will then consider our consent agenda, after which we will recess into executive session after hearing any announcements from board members and points of pride. Having said that, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Treasurer?
Ms. Adair.
Yes.
President Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Ms. Reyes.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And now, if there is no objection, I would like to take our speakers before doing our recognitions. We do have a number of speakers, and if there's no objection, that's what we'll do. So each speaker will have 4 minutes. I will call the names of the speakers. I will state the topic and the board action requested. I will ask the speaker or speakers to come to the podium. You'll see on the screen behind me a 4-minute clock, and just plan to keep your comments within 4 minutes. We appreciate you taking the time to be here this evening. First speaker, actually it's a group of students, Washington Cole, Jay Camara, and Asata Dia. Would you three please approach the podium? Topic is board discussion of infrastructure improvements at Dominion, North, and Brookhaven, school transition. Are they here with us this evening? Okay, very good. Board action requested. Thank you. Here are our comments and questions and concerns about the move. Good evening. Come right up front to the podium. Thank you for being here this evening. So you will have, students, you will have 4 minutes to address the board. You'll see a timer on the screen here behind me, so just plan to conclude your comments when the 4 minutes is concluded. Thank you very much for being here this evening.
Good evening, President Baker, Treasurer Bahorik, Internal Auditor Smith, members of the board, and Superintendent Talisa Dixon. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to voice our concerns. Bonjour, hola, assalamu alaikum. My name is Jael Kamara, and I'm here with my fellow classmates, Washington Cole, Jeremiah Pinkins, and Asada Dia. We are Columbus North High School students, and we are here to ask questions and give our thoughts about the upcoming school transitions. We are going to be seniors. We all had a vision for our senior year, but that vision was altered in February. Our focus has been diverted due to this drastic change. Our focus has been diverted from life-changing decisions like our CCP courses, ACTs, college admissions, scholarships, and our AP test. Speaking of AP test, we are still here today after a 4-hour AP French test. Extremely tired, but determined to make our voices heard. Here are questions that we would like to propose to the board with the understanding that you will not be able to answer all of our questions today, but within a timely manner.
Our first question is, My classmates and I have had 2 meetings with Central Office. We have been to Brookhaven and met with global students. We've provided feedback. What other steps does Columbus City Schools plan on making to ensure a successful move for students? The second question is, why does Dominion Middle School and the future Immersion Middle School get more time to plan and execute their move than we do? What is the rush for the move? The third question is, why was there a vote to determine for the approval of the move before specifics cost for the move was determined?
In hopes that you will get back to us within 48 hours, here are the following questions. When will the decision of the building budget be made? Is it too late in the year to successfully execute the move for the 2019-2020 school year? How will you ensure that every school is treated fairly and equitably in the process?
We would like to thank our teachers and administration for the support during this. And here I have printed similar comments and concerns from our fellow classmates at Columbus North International School. And we would like to give them to each of the board members if I can. Thank you. Thank you again for your time and consideration. At this time, my classmates and I can answer any clarifying questions that you may have.
Thank you, students, very much for being here. If there is anyone else in the room who is a student or a parent or an administrator or a teacher or other staff from Columbus North International High School, please raise your hand or stand to be recognized. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here tonight. Colleagues, are there any clarifying questions for the students from Columbus North International? I'll just say, again, thank you for being here. I know it's not easy to come to a board meeting and share your concerns, and so we love having students at our meetings, and I really appreciate the thought that you've obviously put into your comments and questions, and we will provide feedback to you in short order. So thank you very much for being here this evening.
Thank you. We
And
appreciate
I hope you did well in the AP French exam. Have a good night. Thank you. Our next speaker is Cassandra Freeland. Topic, Developing Plans for Columbus Alternative High School. Board action requested, develop a contingency plan for cause after 2020. Ms. Freeland, good evening, welcome back.
Good evening, President Baker, Treasurer Bohorik, Auditor Smith, Superintendent Dixon, members of the board. I came here again this evening primarily because Board Member Ragland asked me to keep coming back and not to get tired and go away. So like the students, it's May and I'm tired, but I'm still here. I appreciate the upgrades you're planning to Columbus Alternative High School, including bathrooms and limited air conditioning. I watched the video of the meeting where it was announced and I reviewed the PowerPoint. I've spoken a couple times with Mr. Oldham and I trust that he's putting together a group to look at building issues and to understand how we as a school community can ask for and receive information about the building, including asking for repairs. I look forward to learning what evaluation was done of the current building and more specifics about the work done. The only information we've received so far is from the PowerPoint. But what I want to say to you this evening is that you're still kicking the can down the road. I was speechless when I read that the price tag for the changes to North, Brookhaven, and Dominion would be $29 million and that the district planned to use operating dollars for it. That's far beyond the $1 million figure thrown out when the board adopted that plan at the meeting at Afrocentric in February, when it was explained that the district needed time to make upgrades to North before Dominion could move there. I understand why the district acted when it did, and I also understand that families needed to know what the plan was before accepting lottery offers before next year. And I understand the district made promises to those school communities in the past that it did not keep, and most of the families I know that were in those schools have left the district as a result. But if you can find $29 million for those changes, why can't you find more for cause? There are other things we need. New lockers come to mind for me. I'm sure the staff have a list. And I know there are other deteriorating buildings. People from the 2 other buildings that are the worst on the list have said to me that they don't understand why you don't close their buildings. When I enrolled my older son in cause in the spring of 2016, the facilities master plan had just been updated. We were told there'd be a levy on the ballot in the fall and that CAUSE was first in line for a new building. I've been around the block enough times to view that with skepticism. The board ultimately decided to put a smaller Operation Fix-It levy on the ballot because it was determined that a larger levy wouldn't have enough public support. Here we are 3 years later. Board members have mentioned the idea of a bond levy in 2020, and it's still hard for me to imagine the public supporting that levy when the district has 3 half-empty high schools and another 5 at 75% capacity. I attended 2 of the 3 community forums Dr. Dixon held. During the one at South High School, a community member asked about keeping the promises made as part of the last levy to add nurses and counselors. She also added that the district should be considering the impact of these levies on people with fixed incomes, and nothing in the response she received indicated that it was a priority to keep those promises or to consider the impact on those with fixed incomes. And none of those things that I just mentioned lend themselves to public support for a bond levy in 2020. So with that in mind, I want to know what's next for CAUSE beyond 2020 if there's no new bond money. Will it celebrate its 50th anniversary in a sweltering elementary building with a cafeteria that doesn't hold everyone and an auditorium that's half the size of what we need? I would ask that you develop a longer-term plan for CAUSE that does not assume new bond money, one beyond the limited investment proposed this spring, and this is one that's not even going to affect my own kids, but it should affect somebody's kids. My kids will be gone by the time any of this happens. And you've shown more than once that you can find money if you want to, and you can do better for the students and staff at CAUSE, which U.S. News and World Report ranked 25th high school in Ohio last week, in case you did not see that. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Clarifying questions, colleagues, for Ms. Freeland? Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
back. We appreciate it. All right, and our final speaker, Sherry Hardy. Topic, abuse of children. Board action requested, review a book, Just Say No on Sexual Abuse. Ms. Hardy, good evening.
Good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer Baharic, Internal Auditor Smith, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Dixon. I would like to speak to you briefly about sexual abuse of minor children. I worked with children for 25 years. I did workshops in the public school system on sexual abuse. And many times after the workshop, the children would come to us, and they would talk to us one-on-one. Come to find out, many of these children who were being abused never once opened their mouth and said no. They would just hold their head down and submit willingly. I also worked for Children's Services in the Sexual Assault Unit, and come to find out that the statistics are alarming. And this is what inspired my book, Just Say No for Children. This book is a tool to help children use their words to say no to sexual predators. Well, many may say, well, a rapist is a rapist, but we're not talking about hardcore rapists. We are talking about people who normally know these children. They are friends, they are relatives, they may even be family members. And I believe that this book would be a tool to help children to say no to sexual assault. The book currently is in the public library. I was fortunately enough to get the book in the public library, and I'm grateful for that because many people cannot pay $20 for a book, but they can go to the public library and check the book out. No, and words are very powerful. We already know that. And I believe that the Columbus City School Board wants our children to be equipped. I know you're doing a great job, but I think we could do even more because many children are being abused physically and sexually every day. My book, Just Say No, is a very easy book to read. It was written for children between the ages of 5 and 9 years old. So a child that can read pretty good can read this book. And the pictures are very graphic. So even if they can't read, they can see what's going on. I'm hoping that you would consider reviewing my book and get back in touch with me so we can get this book in our city schools as well, and our city school libraries as well. Thank you for your time, and have a good day.
Thank you, Ms. Hardy. Are there any clarifying questions for Ms. Hardy? Thank you very much for taking the time to address the board this evening. We appreciate it.
Can I leave the book with you and you review it?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment this evening. Let's move back to agenda item 3, board recognitions. So here this evening, first to be recognized is the Young Scholars Program. Young Scholars has been in existence since 1988. In fact, they just concluded a 30-year anniversary celebration. Young Scholars has been in partnership with Columbus City Schools since the beginning. Hundreds of students have received scholarships since the partnership began, and millions of dollars have assisted scholars attend and graduate from OSU. Here representing the program, and to share a few words, is Ms. Trina Phillips, who is the program coordinator. Come on up. Thank you very much for being here this evening. And anyone else who's affiliated with Young Scholars. Good evening.
Good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Treasurer Bohorik, Internal Auditor Smith, Dr. Dixon, and to the members of the Columbus Board of Education. Welcome back to Columbus, Dr. Dixon. As I mentioned to you in our brief introduction, Trina Phillips and I are both Columbus City School alumni. Trina graduated from Northland High School, and I graduated from Columbus Alternative High School, like last year, kind of young there. We're here today to celebrate the accomplishments of our young scholars who will be graduating from high school this year. As you mentioned in your introduction, the Young Scholars Program has been around since 1988. And when I took a brief look at our data, more than 540 students have graduated from Columbus City Schools and matriculated on to The Ohio State University. The Young Scholars Program our goal is to identify talented first-generation and low-income students who are attending our public school systems and to offer them college preparatory and college readiness support to support their college access. Our goal is to have them to come to The Ohio State University, but as you learned today, many of our students, or some of our students, will actually go on to other universities and colleges across the nation. There are actually 27 seniors who participated in this senior class. Trina typically holds about 140 students across 9th through 12th graders in her cohorts. And so we will be ushering in a new cohort of 36 8th graders whom will have received their admissions letters today or yesterday. They've been in the mail, and so we'll share with you all our new cohort of our 8th graders who were just recently admitted to the program. We have 18 scholars who will attend The Ohio State University in the fall, and the 8 other are also college-bound. So we had 100% of our senior class admitted to and pursuing a college education. So those scholars who did not choose to attend The Ohio State University, they're going to San Jose State University, Otterbein University, Bowling Green State University, and Ohio University. The scholars who do attend Ohio State University in the fall will receive a robust financial aid package, which meets 100% of the students' demonstrated financial need. Our scholarship package comprises of university, state, and federal aid, and this year the average scholarship for our Columbus scholars is about $15,370. Looking at just their first year, that's a commitment of $292,000 or $1.1 million in scholarship money over the course of the 4 years. And that is a commitment of The Ohio State University to these young scholars. On April the 5th, we celebrated our own signing day. And so there were a couple scholars who were not able to attend that event. And so as you see these scholars recognized, they're also going to be wearing honor cords, which you will be able to see them wear at their university commitment services for program distinction, as well as a pin. And so Trina, because she's the program coordinator for Columbus and doing such fabulous work, she will recognize her scholars. And then if you will all join us in recognizing the scholars with handshakes as they go around the room. Is that okay? All right, congratulations, young scholars. We are proud to have you aboard.
So Miss Lakaya Barnes is from West High School. She is a member of National Honor Society, National Society of High School Scholars. Her junior year, she was in Junior Jumpstart, and this year, Seniors to Sophomores, which are both early college programs. She is a member of City Life, and she attended an engineering summer camp at Dayton University. She also ran track her freshman year at West. Lakaya has volunteered at a local community center all 4 years of high school, where she served as a mentor and has remained on honor roll her entire high school career. She will be attending Ohio State University, and her major is undecided. Janelle Bridges, Independence High School. She is a member of the National Honor Society. She volunteers at her aunt's daycare. She has played basketball and volleyball, and she will be attending The Ohio State University, majoring in biology to become a cardiovascular surgeon. Miss Kiera Cooper, West High School. Kiera is a member of the debate team and volunteers at her church and neighborhood elementary school. She has been on honor roll all 4 years of high school with math and science awards. She will be attending Ohio State University to major in social work. Lena Wadari, Centennial High School. She is a member of STEM Club, mock trial captain, marching band squad leader, varsity lacrosse captain, theater chief of hair and makeup, Bright Futures, a leadership and social justice program for girls with the YWCA and National Honor Society. She volunteers at the Columbus Metropolitan Library with Reading Buddies, Summer Reading Club table and program, and Storytime Helper. She has received MVP awards with lacrosse, a four varsity letter for lacrosse, and instrumental scholar, theater scholar, and scholar athlete. She plans to attend The Ohio State University to major in health science, to one day work in the area of occupational therapy or medical dietetics. Miss Brianna Ellis, Fort Hays Metropolitan High School. She is a member of National Honor Society, National Art Honor Society, and a student in the Greater Helping Hands program. She is heavily involved in volunteering, as she has assisted the National Honor Society for fundraisers for families in need, book drives. She has also assisted with National Honor Society dance-a-thons to raise money for the LGBTQ community, and NK4C, which is a nonprofit organization that provides support for kids fighting cancer. She has helped with Childhood League food drive, Children's Day volunteer, Blizzard bags, and Brianna was an art gallery intern and now currently works at the Ohio Thrift Store. Brianna will be attending Ohio State, majoring in criminal justice to become a detective. I have to switch over. Alfreda Karoma, Mifflin High School. Alfreda is president of the National Honor Society, president of the International Club, president of United Me Club, president of Model UN, class vice president, student council, soccer team captain, girl empowerment group, and leader of school's Bible study. She has been on the bowling team, and she is a Columbus City School ambassador. She has volunteered with Reading Buddies and has received the Young Hero Scholarship and the Beat the Odds Scholarship. She plans to attend Ohio State University and major in health professions to become a nurse. Mr. Kyle Lamb, Eastmore Academy. Kyle has participated in cross-country, swimming, and track. He volunteers at COSI and Columbus Metropolitan Library. He has been on honor roll all 4 years and perfect attendance. Kyle will be attending San Jose State University in San Jose, California, and is undecided right now. Miss Brooklyn Lathan, Mifflin High School. Brooklyn is class president, drill team lieutenant, track and field captain, and has participated in volleyball and basketball. She has volunteered with At the Table Women, a service organization, Adopt a Family for Christmas, and family volunteer projects. She was a Columbus Dispatch Scholar Athlete Award finalist, and she will be attending Ohio State University to double major in business, real estate, and interior design. Rachel Pascal. I don't know, did I see her? Yes, she popped in. Columbus Alternative High School. She is the president of the DIY Club, student senate member, volunteer at Ohio Health Riverside Methodist Hospital, and she will be attending Ohio State University and plans to study and become a neonatal nurse. No, this one is. Yeah, she's not here. Jaslyn Reed McFarland, Fort Hays Metropolitan High School. Jaslyn is involved with National Honor Society, Japanese National Honor Society, Art National Honor Society, and Young Writers Short Play Festival. She volunteers at the Mid-Ohio Food Bank and the Franklin County Board of Elections. Jaslyn has had her art shown in an art gallery in the Short North and currently has art on display in the Shot Tower Gallery at Fort Hays Metropolitan High School. She plans to attend Ohio State University and pursue a dual degree in Japanese and art and technology. Ariana Turner, Northland High School. Ariana is class vice president. She is involved in STEM Club, Youth Advisory Council, College Credit Plus, Link Crew, and Supplemental Instruction Leader. She received the I Know I Can Founder Scholarship along with the Honda Ohio State Award. Ariana is class valedictorian and has received an accommodation from State House Representative Bernadine Kennedy Kent, Ohio State Representative, Ohio House District 25. And I just want to read the last paragraph of that. Additionally, I owe congratulations on your acceptance to The Ohio State University and your academic scholarship sponsored by the Young Scholars Program. Thus, it is with great pride that I applaud you on your academic achievement. Bernadine Kennedy Kent, State Representative, Ohio House District 25. You're welcome. And this last scholar is going to kill me because it's not on my paper, but I know she's here. Renasia May, if you could come forward. Renasia attends Fort Hays Metropolitan High School, and I know that she is heavily involved and she volunteers. She's an entrepreneur. She is all things great, and I fault myself for not having her items on my paper. She plans on majoring in social work. Thank you. I'm not sure, are there any other young scholars that stepped in that I missed? All right, those are our young scholars from the Columbus City School District.
Okay, stand close. Everyone to kind of scoot in together. All right, there we go. I got everybody. Here we go. We're going to take a couple. 1, 2, 3. One more. Perfect. A few others.
1, 2, 3. Then Miss Trina. 1, 2, 3. OH.
Yes.
Congratulations again to all of the young scholars, and thank you, staff, for being here. If there are parents or teachers or administrators here who have taken part in the success of these students, please stand to be recognized. And those of you who were here for the Young Scholars recognition, please feel free to leave now if you need to. We will understand. Thank you for being here. Congratulations. And let's move on as they depart. Any questions or comments related to that recognition, colleagues? Thank you again to the Young Scholars Program for a 30-year partnership. Looking forward to 30 more years. Our next recognition is a resolution in honor of Teacher Appreciation Week. And I'm going to ask, I believe Vice President Phil Hayes is here in the room, President Coniglio, you are here. Please come on up to the podium. So Mr. President Coniglio from the Columbus Education Association is going to come to the podium. So we all know our teachers do a fantastic job of working with our students and serving our families. And teachers have great impact on students, as we all know. We can all think of stories of some of our favorite teachers who really got us through and got us over the hump, and I know I've got a bunch of those. So I just wanted to offer President Coniglio the opportunity to receive a resolution which is going to be read by Board Member Adair.
Thank you. I'm so honored to present this resolution today. If not for teachers, none of us would be here. Right? Teachers build dreams and they build hopes, and they are wonderful people and probably one of the most underrated professions that's out there. And big shout out to my mom, who's a teacher. Okay. We recognize National Teacher Day and the week of May 5th through 11th as National Teacher Appreciation Week. The Columbus Board of Education has established a district mission statement that each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as a citizen in the global community. The district's success in attaining the goals embodied in this mission rest in large measure on our teachers and the qualified work that they do. We entrust them with the development of full educational potential of our children. Teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, mentoring, assisting and coaching students, and performing community service. And sometimes they act as moms and dads, too. Teachers make public schools great by working to open students' minds to the ideas, knowledge, and dreams by serving as listeners, explorers, role models, motivators, and mentors. Teachers keep American democracy alive by laying the foundation for good citizenship by molding future citizens through guidance and education. Our nation's future and democracy depend upon providing a quality public education to all students. The Columbus Board of Education recognizes and supports its teachers in educating the children of our community. The Columbus Board of Education is keenly aware of the importance and impact of teachers on every child in this district, and we firmly believe that our teachers should be recognized for their dedication and commitment to educating our students and contributing to the spirit of success, not just this week, but every day. Let it be resolved that the Columbus Board of Education does hereby honor and value the many contributions of Columbus City School teachers on the lives of our students and families and their positive impact on the community. Let it be further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education urges all Columbus residents to reflect on their outstanding work, to express their gratitude to our teachers for the critical role they perform for our students, families, and this community every day.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and adopt the resolution? Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Yes. Ms. Gibbs? Yes. Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
That motion carried.
President Caniglio, would you like to share some comments?
They'll be brief. I didn't think I was going to make it here tonight. We had PAR panel reporting, and due to the efficiency of the team, we got done early. So I don't have prepared remarks, but I would like to say on behalf of the 4,000 educators in Columbus City Schools, thank you very much. And I think your resolution sums up what we do every single day. So thank you.
Sir. Colleagues, any comments related to the resolution? And any teachers in the audience or in the room? Former teachers, current teachers, please stand and be recognized. Very good. President Caniglio, would you mind coming up front for a photograph with the board? We'll present you with the resolution and anyone else you'd like to have join you. Vice President Hayes, perhaps? All right, we'll do a quick photo.
He had the prepared remarks.
Yes, I'm sure they were very good. President Caniglio and Vice President Hayes, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for all that you have done, are doing, and will continue to do on behalf of students of Columbus City Schools. We appreciate it very much. If there are no other questions or comments related to that particular recognition, let's move on to 3.3, and I believe President Lois Carson is here. President Carson, would you mind coming to the podium? So this is a resolution to recognize bus drivers. So our bus drivers have, yes. So imagine you're responsible for maneuvering, what is it, a 12-ton vehicle through the streets of Columbus.
The resolution.
Oh, so I'm just talking. So bus drivers are incredibly important members of the team, and what you do is so important, and I know it's not easy. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to recognize you, and I'm going to call on Board Member Reyes to present a resolution.
Whereas the Ohio General Assembly enacted Chapter 5.2224 of the Revised Code's General Provisions, which designates the first Monday in May as School Bus Driver Appreciation Day, to increase public recognition of the important function that school bus drivers serve in safely transporting the children of this state to and from school. And whereas May 6, 2019 represented the first Monday in May this year, and whereas the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration has documented a far smaller number of accidents and fatalities per capita on school buses than in automobiles driven by either students or parents. And the Board of Education had established as a district a mission statement that each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as a citizen in the global community. And school bus drivers contribute daily to our spirit of success. And Columbus City Schools, school bus drivers travel narrow roads and multi-lane highways in all types of weather conditions to deliver our students to their places of learning and to their homes again. And the position of a school bus driver is a tremendous responsibility that requires maturity and dedication, with the ability to drive safely through traffic while maintaining the conduct of the students in his or her care, and providing life-saving leadership in the event of emergencies. And each school day, approximately 25,000 public school students and their parents rely upon the safe transportation of their students which the Columbus City Schools provides. And school bus drivers are an important component in overall student and community safety by their knowledge of their students and their neighborhoods. So therefore, Be it resolved that the Columbus Board of Education, in recognition of School Bus Driver Appreciation Day on May 6, 2019, does hereby honor and values the work of the Columbus City Schools school bus drivers for their many contributions to our spirit of success and the positive impact that they have on the lives of our students, families, and communities. Be it further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education urges all Columbus residents to reflect on their outstanding work and to express their gratitude to our school bus drivers for the critical role they perform for our students and families each and every single day.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer, would you call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. President Carson. Good evening.
I have the honor this evening to have with me President Terrell Davis for Local 336, which is our bus drivers, Vice President Stephanie Wally, and our field rep Andre Washington. We had the honor the other night to receive this same recognition from Columbus City Council, and I will kind of sort of repeat to you what I stated to them. We, in most cases, we being the transportation staff, are the first and the last face that most Columbus City School students see. So not only do we get them to and from, we could probably tell you who we pick up at the open shelter, who doesn't have winter clothing, who's been wearing the same clothes, who's sleeping at the bus stop, who's getting to the bus stop early because there's so much negative going on in the home. There's all kind of little secrets that the transportation team are aware of, where the school staff's not aware of those secrets because they see them the first thing in the morning. They see them stress out when we get to the bus stop and that baby knows they have to go back into that environment, or that baby knows there's no food there. They know that, being the bus driver, they're fully aware of the comings and the goings of our students. So we say, when people say, oh, you're just a bus driver, I beg to differ with you. We are more than the bus driver. We know that kid better than some parents know that kid. So we take value in the work that we do daily. We respect and love our job. And who else can drive with almost 65 kids screaming and hollering behind them and get them to and from safely and still come back day after day? I only transported 3 kids, and there were many nights I pulled over to the side of the road, reached back, popped 1 or 2 because they belonged to me. So imagine what you can do with 65 kids on the bus. So I thank you guys, and I thank you guys for this recognition today, because it's not an easy job, but we do it daily, and we respect the work that we do. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask that you come up front for a picture. Come right up front. Comments, colleagues? Any additional comments? Mr. Ragland? Come on up front.
Please, I yield.
I just wanted to say
Ms.
that
Adair.
everything that you said is absolutely correct. I believe that our bus drivers are very undervalued representation of our population and our school team. You guys are vital. And as someone who was in kindergarten, who got sick on a bus all the time, my bus driver was like my best friend on the way to and from school. And you are more than just bus drivers, and that's absolutely right. And I want you to know, and your team to know, that you are absolutely valued. And, you know, we can utilize you better, and please share your ideas as a team on how we can do that, because we are all a team, and you are all vital to the success, the academic success of our kids.
That's right. Mr. Ragland?
Certainly, I echo the comments of my colleague. The one thing that I wanted to use this opportunity to do was highlight an issue that I have heard from many of our bus drivers that exists that we may need to be about the business of solving. Prior to our school safety lights coming on at school zones before school begins, we have several hundred students sometimes that are congregating, catching the bus at centralized bus stops going out to our high schools. Apparently, some drivers has mentioned to me that we have the public that doesn't necessarily follow the traffic laws at that time, and they're flying through those zones while our buses are trying to make turns and be safe with our young people. And one of the things that has been proposed to me was maybe we could start turning on our school hours lights earlier. And if that is something that is against the law, then maybe we need to start talking with our partners in safety in the community about what we need to be doing at our bus stops where we have a lot of students, but folks are on their way to work, not obeying the laws, and we have students that are crossing those streets, and they're going at extremely high rates of speed. And so thank you so much for all of your service. Thank you for being open and honest with me as I visited some compounds about some of the issues that they are facing on the street that we probably need to be looking at trying to solve. Thank you, President Baker.
Very good. Thank you for that comment. And so I'll ask that perhaps the superintendent have a discussion about that with Mr. Oldham subsequent to this meeting. Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, I want to echo and really thank all of the bus drivers, and maybe apologize to the ones that I had, because I wouldn't sit down and be quiet on the bus. You know, I used to be a quiet child, but if it weren't for our bus department, I wouldn't have been able to take advantage of school choice. I wouldn't have been able to attend Franklin Alternative Middle School or the Columbus Alternative High School, or for parents that choose an environment that works for their child, that must put their child on the school bus. And that bus provides an opportunity for them to think, to be on their own. You are the first taste of independence that some of our students have. Can you manage yourself, listen and follow directions from here to there? And anybody that has kids know that sometimes that is a difficult task for a 10-minute ride. But I absolutely agree that you are our face of our district. There is no district without you transporting the thousands of kids all across this district to our over 109 facilities and running our field trips on days. So you are the face of COSI, of the zoo, of concerts, of extracurricular opportunities to see colleges and universities. We are more of a partnership than people think, and we are all in the same. And as a very proud daughter of the union, I am proud to see you and to know that you work very hard and not just win rodeos, but you have a maneuverability that's incredible in snow, in rain, and probably more important right now with everybody with the drop tops who really are not paying attention, and being able to navigate maneuvers. So I truly thank you for all the things that you do and all the work that you do. We always hear the people that come and complain about when you get there, when you don't get there. I'm glad that you get there. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Yeah. Now, bus drivers probably want to get going because don't they wake up at 4 in the morning or something crazy? All right, have a good evening. Have a safe drive tomorrow. If there's nothing else related to bus drivers' recognition, let's move on then, and we are going to recognize Principal's Day. And I'm going to ask April Knight, who is and I think I saw her earlier, and ask her to come up. She's president of the Columbus Administrators Association. There she is. And Andrew Smith, who is principal at Valley Forge. So our principals are instructional leaders, academic leaders on the front lines every day. And so they work with our teachers and others in the school building, as well as community members and other partners, to educate our students. And so we want to take this opportunity to recognize you, and I'm going to call on Board Member Brown to read a resolution.
Thank you, and once again, you've taken about half my text.
Sorry about that, Mr. Brown.
That's quite all right. Thanks to both of you. And this past week is recognized as National School Principals Day, and across the nation, we honor the commitment and dedication of preschool, elementary, middle, and high school principals to our students, our families, and to our communities. This day recognizes the importance of school leadership in ensuring that every child meets our mission of being highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as a citizen in a global community. Whereas school principals are educational visionaries, instructional leaders, assessment experts, adept communicators, budget analysts, facility managers, special program administrators, and entrusted with our most valuable resource, our students. Whereas the dedication and determination of a school principal sets the academic culture and climate for their schools as they work together with teachers and support staff to develop and maintain high curriculum standards. They set performance goals and objectives, provide safe, productive, and nurturing learning environments. And whereas school principals work tirelessly to maintain academic accountability, to ensure a safe, productive, and nurturing learning environment, to encourage and facilitate teachers, support staff, and parent efforts to make a positive difference in the lives of our young people. Therefore, be it resolved that the Columbus School Board values and honors all of our Columbus City Schools principals and assistant principals for their contributions to our spirit of success and for helping to create a world-class model of public education that prepares our students to reach their full potential. And be it further resolved, as with the other resolutions, that we ask all Columbus residents, the entire community, to join us in showing their value and respect for the work that you do for all of us. Thank you.
Brown? And that is a motion. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Madam President, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate this opportunity and this recognition. We work very hard, and we do it because we love the kids. And we do it with the support of the teachers, so the bus drivers, the nurses, the custodians, everybody together. We're the ones that create that team that enable our children to continue to grow. I did want to mention that Mr. Andrew Smith is here helping me this evening. My middle school and high school colleagues are actually at the Clippers game because of our recognition for our best all around with the students, so they were unable to attend tonight.
And I'd like the opportunity just to say thank you, and we truly appreciate all that you do for us and your support. Thank you.
And are there any other current or former principals in the room? Please stand to be recognized if you were a principal or are a principal. She's a soror, did you say? Oh, very good. Thank you all for being here. Any other questions or comments for the principals? Let's take a picture. Yeah, come on up front. Yes, I can see that. Thanks again to our principals for all they do, being the educational leaders in our building, being great partners with everybody in the building and here at the central office. And now, we're going to have a resolution recognizing School Nurses Appreciation. I'm not going to say much more than that, so I don't steal the thunder of the resolution, but I want to ask Dr. Kate King, is she here? Come on up. And yes, I did say Dr. Kate King, so Dr. King recently, yes. Director of Health Services, and Heidi Dooley, who's a school nurse at Mifflin High School. And I'll just say Nurse Dooley recently used her talent to help save a life. So we all love school nurses, and I'm going to call on Board Member Gibbs to offer a resolution.
Also a frequent flyer in the nurse's office. So you know the Columbus Board of Education has a mission that each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as a citizen in a global community. And May 18th, 2019 is recognized as National School Nurse Day. Since 1972, across the nation, recognizing the daily efforts of school nurses serving a critical role in improving public health and ensuring students' academic success for more than 100 years by focusing on the well-being of the whole child. And whereas the school nurse, as key to our Columbus City School spirit of success, are valuable members of the school team, providing an experienced health professional responsible for serving high-quality wellness care, maintaining the link between health and learning daily, and making a positive difference in the life of children. And school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, parents, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health by promoting wellness and improving health outcomes for our community's children. And school nurses diligently adhere to high standards of professionalism and continually work to acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to respond to ongoing changes in the education and healthcare delivery systems. And school nurses are professionals that advance the wellness, academic success, and lifelong achievements of all students by serving on the front lines and providing a critical safety net for our nation's most fragile children. And the Columbus Board of Education is keenly aware of the importance and impact of our school nurses on every child, and firmly believes that our school nurses should be recognized for their dedication and commitment to caring for each of our students and contributing to our success. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Columbus Board of Education does hereby honor and value the many contributions and accomplishments of the school nurses of Columbus City Schools and their efforts of meeting the needs of today's students by improving the delivery of health care in our schools and providing a positive impact on our community by recognizing them on National School Nurse Day, May 8th, 2019. Be it further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education urges all Columbus residents to express their gratitude to our school nurses and recognize the critical role they perform for our students and families each and every day.
Thank you, and moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
And that motion carried.
Thank you. Dr. King, I will no longer refer to you as Nurse Kate King. You'll be Dr. King from now on, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Do you have any words you'd like to offer?
I always have words I'd like to offer if I get the microphone. I'd like to say that we know that health problems clearly affect students' motivation and ability to learn. Providing health services to eliminate those health barriers to promote optimal learning is the role of the 21st century school nurse. And we have 107 21st century school nurses. Our school nurses are all licensed school nurses. Our nurses hold an RN license, a bachelor's degree, and post-baccalaureate education with a dual license from the Ohio Department of Education. Our nurses have education to do advanced physical and mental health assessment, develop emergency action plans, coordinate the whole school health program and the district school health program. We understand special ed law and school law, which is quite different than any other kind of law. We do this by looking at the whole child and the whole community. It's a focus of children, families, community all together. And when I talk about children, family, and community, I also recognize staff, because school nurses do staff healthcare as well. And that's what we're recognizing Heidi Dooley for today. And we've all, as school nurses, had the opportunity to provide staff healthcare. And never is it more important than when we have a staff emergency. Many times school nurses say, it was just my job to save somebody's life. But it is, but it's more than that, because school nurses are highly qualified experts. And we save people's lives because we know what we're doing. We know what to do quickly and calmly. And that's what Heidi Dooley did this past week for one of our staff members. We really thank her for doing that. We do that every day. When I was at Briggs High School, the secretaries would say the only time emergencies happen, Nurse King, is when you're not here. And I said, well, that's not true. The reason is you don't know those emergencies are happening because I take care of them. We have the best health services program in the state of Ohio and one of the best in the nation. I firmly believe that. We know that school nurses have a great return on investment. For every dollar a district spends on a school nurse, they receive $2.20 of return on investment in medical costs and lost productivity from teachers and parents. School nurses in a building save principals almost an hour a day, teachers almost 20 minutes a day, and clerical staff over 45 minutes a day. We're doing the healthcare so those people can do their jobs. We love what we do, and we love our children. And again, I'd like to thank you so much for the support that we have for many years, and we continue to feel from our administration, from our Board of Education, and from all the staff and colleagues of supporting school nurses, experts, licensed school nurses to provide the best care for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, colleagues? Any other comments? Yes, Board Member Adair.
I just want to personally thank the school nurse at my daughter's school who has me on speed dial because I think she's kept my daughter alive all year as I get calls all the time. And it's never a big deal, but I appreciate the fact that you take the time with the students because sometimes they're there because they need a break. And you talk with them and you give them a Band-Aid or some ice, and that's what they need. And then they can go back and perform well in the classroom. So as a mom, I thank you for keeping my child alive at school.
Gibbs.
And for all the moms and dads with the inhalers in the medically fragile. I had a cataract removed when I was in 3rd grade. And was on the very early end of contact lenses and realizing getting hit with a tetherball might make it pop out. So for all of that care from those who really depend on you, we're turning over our most precious assets. Mom has for 5 years done the Band-Aids and the boo-boos and the nosebleeds. And when we turn them over in kindergarten, we trust the nurses to be able to be that, to have the Doc McStuffin Band-Aids and to make them all feel better. But even for our older students that have to come to the nurse for all types of things, middle school, change of life, everything. You are really the person that helps us understand what it means to be on a journey of lifelong health care. And that if you're good to your body will be good to you. And you really instill those values in us. And Kate checks us as board members. If you don't know, she has a blood pressure cuff at board meetings for the way they go. And we'll pull you out and check your vitals if you think you're off, and has been incredible in that regard as well. So we really do thank each and every one of you. And our goal is to highly educate the next generation of nurses through our programs, through our career centers, through the men and the women who will come from our district and be the best nurses they can be. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce your colleagues you have here with you tonight.
I would. So with me, I have Dr. Amy Hotler, who is a supervisor of health services, Debbie Seastone, who is currently at Westmount, Stephanie Dillon, who's a new school nurse to us this year at Avalon, Jackie Broderick Patton, who is our wellness coordinator for the whole district, Jennifer Blair, our nurse at Centennial, and Heidi Dooley, of course, our nurse at Mifflin High School, who saved a life. We save lives every day and help children learn, but that was a particularly notable, thank you, notable thing to do.
Thank you. Come on up, let's take a picture.
I can't share that. We're just happy to do it, but thanks.
Yeah, they did it.
We keep confidentiality as well.
That's what I'm saying. You see legal counsel, legal like, no.
Thank you again to our school nurses. Thank you very much.
Do we have one more?
2. If there are no other questions or comments related to the school nurses recognition, let's move on. We're going to recognize school lunch heroes. I'm going to ask President Carson to come back up to the podium. She said earlier, why didn't you put these 2 in a row so I didn't have to come back up? So come on up, President Carson. School lunch heroes. They feed our students and provide important guidance and advice to them every day. These members of the team are really like family to our students and to our staff. Critical support for the academic excellence in our schools. I'm going to call on Board Member Reyes before I ruin this one too. Board Member Reyes.
Thank you. Whereas national children's author and illustrator Jared Krasoska created the Lunch Lady Hero book series in honor of the childhood nutrition hero, and the first Friday of May was originally established as School Lunch Hero Day to honor the daily contributions of our school nutrition team members, and May 3rd, 2019 was widely recognized across the nation as School Nutrition Employees School Lunch Hero Day, and the Columbus Board of Education has established as a district mission statement that each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as a citizen in a global community. And nutritious meals at school are an essential part of the school day and achieving academic success for each and every student. And Columbus City Schools Office of Food Services is committed daily to providing healthy and nutritious meals to our district students. The team members that prepare and serve school meals to our students help nurture our students and contribute to their academic success through their daily interaction and support. Now therefore be it resolved that the Columbus Board of Education honors and values all of our Columbus City Schools school nutrition employee team members' contributions to our spirit of success and for helping to create a world-class model of public education that prepares our students to reach their full potential. Be it further resolved that the Columbus Board of Education urges all Columbus residents to express their gratitude to our school nutrition employee team members and recognize the critical role they perform for our students and families each and every day.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair?
Yes.
President Baker?
Absolutely.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs? Yes. Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you. President Carson, the floor is yours.
Good evening again. This time I have with me Ida Jones, who is my CSEA Vice President, and Andre Washington. On behalf of our food service staff, I thank you. That is a group, again, that is totally forgotten most of the time in the district. The adults may forget that group, but the kids do not. The kids remember them. They talk about them. I have a 33-year-old who at least once a month I see on Facebook him and past classmates having a debate who had the best lunch lady. And it goes on for days. The comments and the remarks, and you have to laugh because they're showing pictures of food and no, this was the best chicken, no, these were the best pizza. So it does stick with our children. They remember what they get. But again, I must say this too is a group that provides the necessities for our babies, because the breakfast and lunch that they receive here may be the only meal that these children receive. So when we send them home on Fridays, they may not eat again until Monday. So on behalf of OPSI, CSEA, we appreciate the work they do, but I gotta throw a punch in before I sit down. I stand here proudly representing 3,400 classified employees who kick butt daily in this district in the variety of jobs they do. So I remind you, I love my CEA partners, but without us, there would be no school system. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carson. With that shot across the bow, why don't you come right on up and take a picture? Oh, yes.
Part preempted me, but
Mr. Brown.
You know, seeing all the recognitions that we're doing tonight, I wondered, and maybe it's the time of year for recognitions of some of the other groups. So I thank you for mentioning the administrative professionals that support our professional educators, our the folks that keep our buildings clean and maintain our grounds. And there are so many people throughout an organization like this. And so thanks to all of the people that have played an important part in our work every single day and in making sure that our focus is on our kids and that our kids get a great education from all of us. It's not only from the teacher in the classroom, it's from everybody they encounter throughout their days, and thank you.
Comments, colleagues? Mr. Treasurer.
I just want to interject a little story that you might find interesting with a school lunch program and me. So you have to roll the clock back to my junior high days, and I was a friend of mine and I went in because they were looking for cashiers in the lunch line. And now this was a time when we had a boys line and a girls line, and yeah. Well, it could have been just Dominion, I don't know. We had a boys line and a girls line, and the first thing about being a cashier is there were no icons. This was an adding machine, so we had to know the price of every item, what the Jell-O cost, what the pizzas cost, what an extra vegetable was, or what the main dish was. We had to know all of that, so that was pretty good practice for somebody who might later on be interested in numbers of some sort. But the most interesting thing for the story was I remember going in with my friend, and he looked at me and he says, "I get the boys' line." And I said, begrudgingly, "Sure, I'll take the girls' line." So I did the girls' line for 2 years in middle and in junior high school. So it left an indelible impression.
I want to commend the entire lunch staff, because if you think what goes down at the bus stop is something, the lunch table is definitely the culmination. But I also want to commend the leadership, you, Mr. Odom, the leadership of this board and our district many years ago of going to universal breakfast and lunch. So when you read in the paper about people lunch shaming, we don't have that problem. We believe that each student should be highly educated, so each student should be able to have a nutritious, a routine, and a consistent meal. Now, the debate is over the fiestada, Lois. It's the fiestada, who had the best fiestada. But it's not a debate, is it, if you come to our district, will your child be able to have breakfast? Yes. Will your child be able to have lunch? Yes. And many times through partnership, be able to take things home on the weekends to make sure we bridge that gap of nutritious meals. So thank you for that entire leadership, because not every school district in this country can say that. So thank you.
All right, let's take a picture. Board Member Adair.
I just want to say, Stan brought up a really good point that I think is really valuable. Oh. Because it isn't just giving our students food, which is amazing and that's what they need. It's about teaching them skills. I know that in elementary school, the kids get really excited about having the responsibility of wiping tables and picking up the trash. And so you are teaching them valuable life skills outside of the classroom that are very important. So, that brought that to my attention. So thank you, Stan.
It was a huge, my dad, who was a school principal, when he learned that I worked in the lunchroom, I got a 60-cent lunch pass. And he said, "Since you're working then, I'll turn that into your allowance." So we had a real economics lesson as a 7th and 8th grader to do that through the lunchroom. So it's a great experience.
Again, thank you to our school lunch heroes. I'm a really big fan of the lunch lady. I had to, yes, yeah. I was a big eater as a kid. Still, thank you. So let's move on then to, and I loved soy burgers, by the way. Does anybody remember soy burgers? Never mind. We are now going to recognize substitute teachers. And so Rosa Cornelius, who is here from HR, and Maribel Richardson, also from HR. I know that both of you do a tremendous amount of work to make sure that we have substitute teachers ready every day to serve our students. I know it's not easy, and we know that you work very hard, and I don't think you get enough recognition. I don't think anybody gets enough recognition, so we're glad you're here. I'm going to call on Board Member Adair to share a resolution.
Yes, so again, I'm super excited to present this recognition for National Substitute Teacher Week, which coincides with Teacher Appreciation Week, which makes sense because substitutes are teachers, right? They're special guest star teachers that go in and help out when our teachers need to do professional development or are sick. Some are long-term subs, and they are a vital component of our teams. So we're here today to thank you guys, though, because you set up a system of identifying, training, and assigning and supporting our talented substitute teachers here in our district. And without your effort, it would not be possible to get all of those substitutes into our buildings. So the Columbus Board of Education takes this opportunity to recognize our substitute teachers, our special guest star teachers in all of our buildings, to recognize you, Ms. Cornelius and Ms. Richardson, for your dedication and commitment to ensure the academic success of our students. So now it be resolved, the Columbus Board of Education honors and values all the contributions to our spirit of success of our substitute teachers, of Ms. Cornelius and Ms. Richardson, and for their help to create a world-class model of public education that prepares our students to reach their full potential. Further resolved that, again, with all of these resolutions, we really urge the Columbus community to express their gratitude for our substitute teachers and for your work, and to recognize the critical role that you play in the success of our students and our families each and every day.
And is there a second? Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Is it here?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Ladies, the floor is yours.
First of all, good evening to the members of the board, Superintendent Dixon. On behalf of our substitute teaching family, and we do call them family because who else will allow you to call them at 6:30, 5:30 a.m. and get you up out of the bed, rain, snow, sleet, or what have you, to go and fill in for our teachers. So we are very honored to receive this recognition on behalf of our substitute teaching force. I have graduated 4 children from Columbus City Schools, many nieces and nephews. So hearing their stories of oftentimes how a substitute teacher makes a difference in their life drives Ms. Richardson and I every day to go in and get the best coverage that we can, matching credentials with classifications, with long-term assignments, working with our substitutes when they have to make arrangements in their own personal lives to be able to cover at the last minute, whether it be for a day, a half a day, or a long-term assignment. So we are very honored to be able to receive this recognition this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, colleagues? Board Member Gibbs? Let me guess, you abuse substitute teachers too?
Well,
Okay, never mind.
sorry. I do appreciate all of our substitute teachers. I really do want to thank you. And as I mentioned to Board Member Ragland, because sometimes it's switch your seat day when the substitute comes, you know, right? Because you have a substitute, but for all those substitutes that weren't having it that day, especially when you get a long-term sub and they come back the next day and you go, uh-oh, I think I better get this right. I do think you step into someone else's vision, someone else's track, someone else's sting, but without them, our teachers couldn't get professional development. They couldn't attend to medical emergencies or sometimes take care of their own children, right?
Yes.
And be able to step away from the classroom, but know that we have qualified, well-trained people that can come in and help our buildings run. And when you bring the amazing, sometimes they come in for a day or two, but sometimes they're there for maybe a week or so. And when they're able to gel with your school building team and they understand the philosophy of that leader, the learning is seamless. And that you really don't miss a beat, even if you get Shauna Gibbs in class. Now, I'll test all your skills, but they still get it done. So thank you for all that they do. Yeah.
If there are no other comments, come on up, let's take a picture. Ms. Vice President? All right, thank you. Thank you again to our substitute teacher family. Thank you very much for everything that you do. I'm glad we have the opportunity to recognize your hard work. And now, is there a motion for adjournment? No, I'm kidding. No, no, no. No, 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 no. I know. It might end the meeting. Calm down, calm down. Everybody calm down. Let's move on. We've already had public comment. Let's move on then to our reports from our direct reports. And so first, I'd like to call on 21st Superintendent of Columbus City Schools, Dr. Dixon. The floor is yours.
President Baker and board members, in my report tonight, my team, we want to spotlight efforts in our district with our community partners that go above and beyond, serving our kids with more than what's required and more than what's sometimes expected, and encouraging our students to do the same. So let me begin with the efforts to serve our exceptionalities, specifically our students with special needs. One of the highlights of my past 2 weeks was a visit to Lifetime Columbus, which, as most of you know, is housed at the Lori Schottenstein Shabbat Center. Rabbi Kautman and his wife, along with the board chair Skip Weiler, gave me a special tour of this unique space where our students with special needs are developing critical life skills, and making mistakes in a safe environment. Amazing place. I'm sure that you know that Lifetime is the only facility of its kind in Ohio, and many of our district's teachers, therapists, and professionals in special education help in the design. More than 5,000 students visits are counted each year, and kids from our districts are by far one of the largest groups. What most impressed me is how students are shown ways to apply the lessons they've worked on in the classroom and see how those transfer into natural community experiences. Rabbi Kautman also briefly shared with me the Stop to Live curriculum that Lifetime developed in collaboration with some of our staff. The focus is on teaching students with special needs about the dangers of drug use and opioid abuse. Until now, there really hasn't been a preventative curriculum designed to meet the wide array of abilities and special needs classrooms, so I'm proud to hear that this partnership is going above and beyond on that front. And during my first 100 days, oh yeah, that little girl had the wonderful bracelet, and she said she was Wonder Woman for the day, so we was doing that. Yeah. So during my first 100 days, as I look at all of our district partnerships, I know we need to continue to look at more of our partnerships around serving students with special needs, and more importantly, look at how we're aligning those partnerships to maximize their outcomes. This was the message I shared with the meeting of our partners who serve our students with Down syndrome. Currently, we're serving more than 300 students whose primary disability is Down syndrome. It was an informational meeting with the representatives of the Down Syndrome Association of Central Ohio, including their president, CEO, Carrie Jones. Lots of room for partnership, and I look forward to seeing more of alignment of their work, especially around summer learning opportunities, and also opportunities to get our families, specifically our African American families, some support groups within Central Ohio. My next top topic for the night is getting our students to focus on reaching higher and heading to college after graduation. Several high school students celebrated college signing day this past Wednesday, and I joined a special academic signing day event at South High School. It was their first academic signing day, along with I Know I Can. This fall, our graduates will be headed off to more than 100 different colleges and universities all over the country, including some of the nation's most prestigious and selective institutions. We know that for many of our students, deciding where they're going to college is exciting. It's a major step toward a personal future, and it feels like an epic occasion. And I want to thank I Know I Can for encouraging students to reach higher and for celebrating college signing day. The students were so excited, and again, thank you to South High School. I also want to thank the Columbus Rotary, who's helping more of our students pay for going to college. This past week's Rotary meeting was focused on our students in our district. Thank you, Board Member Ragland, for joining me at the luncheon. I had the opportunity to speak about my transition and some of our challenges as we look to change the narrative about our schools and our district.
More important, 4 of our graduating seniors earned Young Hero Scholars of $2,500 each. And one of those young ladies you saw earlier who just received one of the Ohio Young Scholars. They were recognized for how they never let challenges in their life hold them back from reaching higher, pursuing their passions, and heading off to college. Since 2003, the Columbus Rotary has nurtured a culture of service in our students by fostering community service attitudes. From mentoring kids one-on-one and sponsoring public service projects with our team, to providing scholarships for college and opening doors to new careers. Rotary has always been an impactful contributor to the success of our students. The young man on the left is going to Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, and I gave him my brother and my sister-in-law, so he has some mentors when he gets to Jackson this fall. On Monday is the High School Service Above Self celebration, and the Rotary again awards several scholarships, including one for $25,000. Instilling a drive to reach higher is just not for high school students. It's really a message that students need to hear earlier. So for my next topic, I want to spotlight a message of resilience and empowerment that we will share with our middle school students this past weekend at the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Middle School Scholars Tea. The great annual event is truly steeped in tradition, embodied with professionalism and prestige, and exemplary in nurturing spirit of generosity, and sponsored by the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Alpha Sigma Omega chapter. We honored more than 500 of our 8th grade students from across the district who are set to matriculate in high school next fall. And that's a picture of all the students who were there on Saturday. These young men and women earned GPAs of 3.5 or higher, and their principals and school counselors were there to make sure they carried on that spirit of success into 9th grade. In full transparency, Alpha Kappa Alpha is my sorority. Just as the sisterhood has been a part of my foundation for 30 years, it has never faltered on its promise to support our middle school scholars in their quest for academic excellence. And this is something that the sorority has been doing prior to me. They've been doing this for years in this district, and I was just glad to be a part of it this year. Our next topic is honoring one of our teachers. So during the senior breakfast at Columbus Alternative High School, history teacher Sarah Thornburg was honored with the Teacher of Ohio Representing Character and Heart Award, otherwise known as the Torch Award, from the Ohio Department of Education. In addition to history, Thornburg also directs the Youth at the Booth initiative, which includes having our students work at polling locations on Election Day and providing practical civil engagement experiences. So it was nice that had an opportunity to see that. And one more of our top topics in Spotlight is how our district engages with so many volunteers. So this past week, again, Vineyard Columbus sent more than 300 volunteers to engage in the spring cleanup activities at 10 of our schools. I joined it on a kickoff presentation with Northern High School, along with Vineyard Senior Pastor Rich Nathan and the Mayor's Chief of Staff, Don Tyler Lee. Thank you, Board Member Dare, for joining us as well. Volunteers weeded flower beds, planted flowers, mulched, picked up trash, and painted parking lot lines. They were also at Avalon, Beechcroft, Mays, Northgate, Northtown, Parkmore, Spanish Immersion, Woodward Park, and Woodward Park at Walden. Pastor Nathan shared that the cleanup day is meant to let the building staff know how much their work is appreciated and let the students know how much they're valued in their community. So again, thank you for that valuable partnership and the value that they give back to our community. Volunteers will also fill in many of our elementary classrooms this week as part of I Know I Can Read to Succeed week. I traveled to Parkmore Elementary to read to a combined class of second graders. And President Baker will share some of the pictures later on his visit to Southwood. It's great to see the work of our volunteers aligns with our priorities on reading and on career readiness, because many of these volunteers are encouraged to read books designed to get kids talking about college and careers. My story was a new version of the fable about the tortoise and the hare, and let me tell you that these second graders were quick to understand the lessons of that. One young man that's standing to my right, your left, he saw that I didn't have my readers, and he offered his glasses to help me read the story. He took off his glasses and said, "Superintendent Dixon, would you like my glasses?" Just a nice group. Those teachers are doing some amazing things. It was just an honor to be there. So before I end my report, my team added a bonus section to spotlight the truly wild week that we've had. You recall my close encounter to the goodness, that opossum, and the screech owl, then the board retreat at Spruce Run, all thanks to the Columbus Zoo. I won't mention the mouse, brought to us by Mother Nature. And as if it wasn't enough wilderness, during my visit to Lifetown, there were more animals, a friendly rabbit, and a scary-looking bearded lizard. Look at that. Right? These pictures are proof that in a career field, we must be ready for anyone, anything, any animal that may come in our way. And with that, I conclude my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Colleagues, questions for the superintendent on her report? All right, thank you very much. Looks like a great week. What day are we? What day are we in? Is it 62? 62? All right. Doing a good job so far? Yes, ma'am. All right, let's move on then and call on the Office of Internal Audit. Mr. O'Connor, anything from the Office of Internal Audit?
No report from internal audit.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Treasurer.
Good evening.
Would you like to report?
I certainly would. Thank you, President Baker and members of the board. Tonight, I'm here to present the May 2019 update to our 5-year forecast. As you are well aware, our forecast document includes 8 years, 3 years which are actual data, in this case 2016 to 2018 fiscal years. And then the forecast covers the 5-year period from fiscal year 2019, our current fiscal year, out to 2023. As you also well know, it's been my practice to do some trending to extend it out another 3 fiscal years to 24, 25, and 26 for the purposes of a longer range financial planning. This document, while it will obviously bear my name and is ultimately my responsibility, I like to share either recognition or blame, as the case may be, with others in the office that have helped and assisted me in preparing this document. And it goes way beyond just an extra set of eyes on the document, but a lot of counsel and insight and noodling, if you will, about all the various aspects and trying to put together a forecast. So calling out our controller, Mike McCammon, the executive director in the Office of Budget and Financial Management, Scott Gooding, as well as, and I see I need to change the title over his name because he's been able to jettison at least part of his former title. He's now strictly with government affairs, but Dr. Eric Roush, our supervisor in policy and government affairs. So they all helped put this together and at least give me some peace of mind that to the best of our abilities, we haven't overlooked anything in this particular forecast. This forecast was presented to the Finance and Appropriations Committee back on April 11th, and then tonight it's being presented to you for review and discussion. Ultimately, it will be presented back to the board on May 21st for its adoption, and then we will file it thereafter. The next few slides will be very familiar to you because I repeat them as an introduction, primarily to give you an idea of the environment in which all of us have to prepare a forecast and the uncertainties that we face. And that forecasting certainly is very difficult, especially when it's about the future. The legal requirement as background, as you heard probably, I think this happened last year, but it used to be October, end of October of each year. It's now November 30 primarily to allow for the passage of November operating levies to be then included in the forecast. We currently are planning on staying with an October cycle because we're up for that in terms of Finance Committee schedule. So we put it together in August, present it to the committee in September, and then come to the board in October. In 2020, we may choose to do something a little bit different depending upon the board's decision about that particular ballot. But that's the legal background for the document. ODE provides a document for everyone to review in terms of how to read a forecast. Just highlighting that it's a snapshot today, looking out into the future, and the further out we go, the more likely it is that actuals will deviate from what our projections are. I also like to point out that of all the things that that ODE mentions as a significant variable, and in terms of the variety of events that will affect what the ultimate outcome is, they particularly call out a state budget. And this year, as you well know, we're in the throes of the preparation of the next state biennial budget, and that certainly, I'll discuss a little bit of that later, but as you all know, that's a very important variable. We're certainly operating in an environment where there are many, many variables that affect our forecast. Some are very difficult to predict. Many of them are outside our control. And again, those uncertainties impact how this all comes together in actuality. And this really is my statement that it's a roadmap of our future based upon our best snapshot of today, based upon a particular set of assumptions. And I always like to add, and it's always subject to change. I have to tell you that in the last couple of weeks, maybe even in the last day or so, things have changed, and some of the planning that we're doing will impact this forecast. So unfortunately, given how the process, it is clearly kind of stale, but we'll keep you abreast of changes. This past Tuesday, Dr. Roush and I had the opportunity to attend a economic and legislative update and to meet the new state treasurer and state auditor. And one of the presenters there that was doing the legislative update walked through some of the various school funding proposals. And it was very interesting to note that the very last slide, at the very bottom of the slide, his final comment was, more changes to come. And so to this day, we don't know how that will work out. But we've done our best job to pull together a forecast. So let's move on to the May forecast. And I'm going to at least briefly walk you from last May to this May, kind of give you a year in review. Some of these items were captured in the October update, but I thought it best to go back a year. Revenue, first of all, we've included the actual results from fiscal year 18. That would have been reflected in October, but that's part of the changes that have occurred. In the revenue category, we continue, because we have nothing permanent or definite to change our vision of state aid in the future. We continue to use the existing state model. We continue to be capped, and we continue to assume that cap would grow at 4% annually. We have incorporated the very favorable results in other local revenues that we've experienced and discussed at FAC as the months go by into our forecast that have come through FY19. And on the expenditure side, we continue to experience and therefore have included the under budget experience for expenditures, both personnel and non-personnel running under budget. So we've adjusted this forecast to reflect those positive results, and since some of it's kind of a last year, we use the current year and last year to predict out into the future. Those results get multiplied forward, and I will tell you that in this forecast there was a concerted effort to remove some of the conservative nature in our forecasting that we've talked about before, so that we can get just as close as we can to actuals. And we're comfortable with this. At this point, I will tell you that having done that, we get a result that this is oftentimes the last graph I share with you, but this is the end result of all of our work. And this is a graph of the ending cash balance from the May forecast of last year to the October of last fall to the current forecast. Things to note. One, last May, the final year in the forecast was fiscal year 22. When you get to October, you roll 1 year out because 18 becomes actual, and you roll another year on the end, which is fiscal year 23. You'll also see that we've been experiencing favorable results, and we reflect that in our forecast. It presents an improving cash balance, and then obviously where I said we've removed some of our conservative forecasting, that has presented a much favorable picture. You might say, well, this is kind of a dramatic change of events, and I would tend to agree, but you have to understand the assumptions that we've made and come to realize how comfortable we are in those assumptions, and also understand some very significant variables that loom for us on the horizon before we hang our hat on this and overreact to this picture that we've painted. So those changes in summary from May of last year to this year, about $7.4 million in favorable actual results that we experienced and are now actual. About $20 million a year has been added in revenue in a variety of categories. That over that 5-year period, it amounts to almost $100 million in an increased cash balance. And then that really is about 2% a year. So on a percentage-wise, it's not a large variance, but tweaking at 2% compound itself over that 5-year period. On the expenditure side, we do a like 2% variance each year, adjustment, although in the other direction, lowering those expenditures, which enhances the cash balance by about another $100 million over that 5-year period. And you'll see in the graphs and in the data and in the report that for fiscal 22, we've picked up about $207 million in the cash balance. This graph is simply to share with you how those changes year by year build one on another. And I often refer to this as kind of a lever, if you will, that it's anchored at one end, and when you make a small change down there at that one end where it's anchored, it tends to exacerbate itself out into the future. So because current years tend to carry forward and it tends to be a little bit multiplicative, you can get a pretty big swing at the end for relatively smaller changes up front. So trying to give you some picture of how that works. So let's look at the major sources of revenue. Property taxes during this period, and this graph, as all of the graphs will be, show you 3 years of actual, and the blue lines, the orange line is the actual forecast period, and then the gray lines out to the far right are the ones that I've trended. You'll see here that for fiscal year 16 to 18, those actual numbers, that steeper line represents the growth in property taxes due to the new operating levy that was approved in 2016. And from fiscal year 18 out to fiscal year 23, that growth rate is about 1.6 annually. It varies a little bit year to year based upon my assumptions about reappraisal and updates, but pretty much about 1.6 annually over this time period. There is no new operating levy contemplated in this forecast. We're not allowed to do that. And keep in mind, that's why they changed the October date to November, so that when you get to that forecast, you can include it. Back in 2016, we adopted an October forecast, passed the levy in November, and then I recast the forecast and had it readopted and refiled it to reflect that, okay? Moving on to state foundation payments. The first thing that I'd point out here is that we assume that we receive more state aid each year. So when you hear discussions about the funding formula and the budget that's being proposed, and they'll say, you're receiving more aid each year, my answer to that is, well, of course we are. We're anticipating that. We're building it into the forecast. And so one of the things when we look at the proposals, we spend, quite frankly, an inordinate amount of time trying to recast the forecast based upon their assumptions and then compare it to what we assumed. And so just because they say we get X or we get Y in a certain year, I'm more interested in how to fix my forecast and how those numbers compare over time. At this point, since we don't know anything for sure, we have limited data. We don't have the actual formulas. So even though they spit out a simulation and give us a number, I'm not real sure how we get there. But at this point, I'm going to draw Eric into the fray and say that we're reasonably comfortable that our forecast should be pretty good should be pretty good. But keep in mind that the substitute bill, I think, was dropped just into last week, and there's more to come. Eric has always described for you that legislative process, and this will drag on clearly until the month of June, undoubtedly. So just to understand that that's a huge variable for us. Again, this line and the slope of the line from 19 out to 2026 assumes that 4% increase in the cap. When you actually run the math on this, the compound rate's about 3.8% for those of you who want to be down in the weeds a little bit on the calculation. Not all the lines vary by that 4% cap calculation. We move on to property tax allocation. This is the rollback. This is the state contribution to the levies. You know, if you remember, about 12.5% was paid by the state, and the taxpayers picked up the other 87.5%. That was repealed, so that our 2016 levy, our taxpayers pay 100% of that. So all new levies are fully funded by our taxpayers without any state assistance. So that impacts the cost of the levy for the homeowners as we go forward. In this particular case, the decline in the line from 16 to 19 represents the phase out of the tangible personal property reimbursement from the state, and then we pretty much have this kind of flat forecasted out for the balance of the year. I would note to you also, when you look at these graphs, this is the first graph where the scale has changed dramatically. In the previous two graphs, the y-axis was in hundreds of millions of dollars. We've now moved to a line item where the graph is listed in tens of millions of dollars. So just in an overall percentage contribution to our financial picture, this line plays a much smaller part. When we look at all other revenues, this is one of the lines that we talk about quite a lot at Finance Committee, because we've been experiencing some very favorable results versus our estimates in terms of investment income and pilots payment in lieu of taxes. And those are up pretty significantly. We did try to incorporate some of that, but that's one of those items that you're not sure. Can we count on the interest income? Can we count on pilots to be there the whole time? Again, here you can see that we've jumped about $10 million in that line over last year. Also included in this line is the $2.3 million that we've received an accounting auditor refund this year. There's a pattern of about every 3 years to get that. It's a small amount. I don't necessarily plug that in, but keep that in mind that can be a pop. And when you're talking about a line item that represents $30 to $40 million, 2.3 can make a movement in this. In 2025, we have some debt service that drops off. That gets paid off, and that represents why we go down about $3 million in those years. When we look at total revenues, this is just a combination of all that of the previous data that I just shared with you, and this pretty much represents about a 2.1 growth rate from 2018 to 2026 fiscal year. And I want you to keep that rate 2.1% compounded in your head for a later comparison in this discussion. Just some other graphical displays, breaking out for you our two major sources of revenue, property taxes and state grants and aid. And just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the relationship overall, and you can see that while general property taxes grew in the first 3 years, they tend to level out a bit, but the state grant and aid grows a little bit faster because of that 4% assumption about cap growth. Here's the composition in terms of dollars, and you can just see again the relative contribution of each source to our overall revenues during this time period. And this is the percentage breakdown. Roughly 93% of our revenue is from local property taxes and state aid, and 7% comes from all the other sources. So I tend to really focus in on state revenue and local property taxes for a very good reason. Looking to the expenditure side of the equation. Personnel, this includes salaries, wages, and the benefits line. I've combined them here. This increase from 19 to, actually for 2020 and beyond, I'm always asked the question, what have you included? What we've included is a 1% base increase in all those years, plus the cost of steps as we've estimated them. Again, there's some compounding in there, so you don't just add 1 and 2 and get 3. It ends up being about 3.7 compounded over time. Fiscal year 2021 includes the addition of 159.5 FTE of the 2016 levy items. I will tell you that, and Dr. Dixon may or may not want to discuss it, but she is in discussions and reviewing those positions and reevaluating need, purpose, placement, all of that. So those are ongoing discussions, and that's part of what I'm going to mention in terms of academic programming as being a variable. So as we have the opportunity to look at academic program and perhaps make some changes because we've got some work to do, that will likely impact those expenditures. So that is ongoing yesterday and today. Probably a total of at least 6 hours of time that we spent together discussing the FTE side of things. You'll notice a bump in 2017 and kind of wonder what the heck was going on there. Because we were on a 26 pay plan, every now and then you run into 27 pays within a particular time period. Now this happened to occur in fiscal year 2017. Everybody will ask me, well, did you pay everybody an extra pay? And the answer is no. It's just a beauty of how our calendar works. We will run into a situation where during a contract period, either the administrator's contract period or the classified contract period or the teacher's contract period, that we will run into 27 pays, and we will have to discuss what we're going to do about that, because in those cases, if you divide by 26 but pay 27, you do pay 1 extra pay, so you can't do that. So we'll have to talk about how we're going to fix that. I think I know what, I should have written down what year it is, but it's a ways off. So, but just know that I know when it's coming, and I'll keep you posted. But that's just a calendar kind of anomaly that happens. This line item, as I mentioned, compounds at about 3.7% over the 2019 to 26 time period. The next lines, all the non-personnel lines, are a function of what Mr. Gooding does in the budget process. He has all of our departments pulled together, a 5-year budget, goes through that. And you remember, as we've talked at FAC, that budget process has morphed over time from just doing certain lines to doing spreadsheets to now entering everything in the non-personnel into our ERP system, into Munis. And it allows us to put not only the data in, but also some verbiage about an explanation. And while that's a fair amount of work on all the budget directors and managers' part, it sure saves Scott and me a lot of time, because now we can essentially push a button, pull the data out, and begin our analysis and pivot tables and all of that. And Excel makes it very easy. So it's a very it's really good improvement in that. So again, this is based on the budgets they submitted. One of the anomalies that you might point to is what's going on in 2019. And 2019 reflects our under budget spending. 2020, we go back to budgets. Those are primarily in the area of tuition and utilities, where we come in under, but we're going to budget them at a higher level for the ensuing years. So that's the bump in that line. This is a compounded growth rate of about 4% annually throughout this period of time. Supplies and materials, there's a little trick question for you as you look at this graph. In which year do you think we're doing a textbook adoption? Everybody who thinks it's FY21, you are correct. And so that in a line item like this with the size of a textbook adoption, it tends to stick out like a sore thumb. This growth rate is about 3.5% over that time period. When we look at capital outlay, this is a very interesting line to me. First of all, note that we're talking about $3 to $4 million for capital outlay in the general fund. And when you're looking at a $900 to $1 billion budget, capital outlay seems to play a very, very small part of it. And you should recall that we've been pretty much, I guess, on either a drive or a crusade to pull our capital expenditures out and fund them with capital funds of some sort, a PI levy, a bond issue, sale of building funds, things like that, to pay for capital and get it out of the operating fund. That creates this kind of a situation where we're not spending much in capital, but then it begs the next question of how do we fund the capital? And that was the question that we've had about Dominion, Brookhaven, North, and the facility master plan, things like that. So that has now separated out our capital funding question, but then you get a very small line item here in capital funds within the general fund. So it's pretty flat from during this period of time. When we look at all other expenditures, it's debt service, transfers in and out, county auditor and treasurer's fees, reasonably flat. Again, the jump, you can see a drop off in 2025. That's the debt service coming off the books at that point in time. And as you may or not recall, but the forecast includes general fund operating expenditures only, except for the addition of debt service payments that are incurred for general operating purposes. For instance, the bus purchase that we did. That was really for general operating purposes, and the way we borrowed the funds, they want us to report it here on the forecast. So as that drops off, then it disappears off of the 5-year forecast. So nothing terribly noteworthy in this line. When we look at all total expenditures combined together, it's about a 3.5% annual growth rate. I asked you a few minutes ago to remember a particular revenue growth rate. That's 2.1. So the revenue in this forecast is growing at about 2.1% compounded, while our expenditures are growing at 3.5%. Not atypical for school district. That's the way funding works, and it's not a sustainable relationship, and that's why every so often we have to inject additional revenue, and that's typically in the form of local resources, which is called property tax. Same look at expenditures. This time I combine all the non-personnel items just to show you that personnel really is the most significant expense that we have. Within non-personnel, about 70 or 80%, that's community school deductions, which is actually broken out here in the next chart. And you'll see that the second largest expense that we have is somewhere between $190 and $220 million forecasted in community school expenses. Now, relative to the school funding models, the Cup-Patterson one says that we're going to have a separate line item for community school funding. So that won't be a deduct, but then they also do something to our revenue. It's not like the deduct just goes away and we magically get another $200 million. So there's going to be an adjustment there, both revenue and expense. And that's what we've struggled with here, trying to look at the school funding models, as to, they seem to be working with a net number, but I need to know how we get there. Because in my forecast, I've got the revenue grossed up, if you will, and then I'm including the deductions. And now we have to recast that forecast to see, yeah, they said we're going to get X and Y, but are we really, relative to my forecast, because we're trying to plan out the forecast. It's uncertain what it is. I just want you to know that there is a line item that could change come June, could change. Percentage-wise, you'll see that, and I've mentioned this before, we run about 66% personnel, but that's distorted by the 22% that is deducted from us for community schools. Again, if that goes away, we'll go back to more of a 80 to 85% expenditure level in personnel. Bringing it all together with total revenues, expenditures, and then adding the impact on the cash balance. It's not terribly clear here, other than the fact that revenues and expenses tend to be fairly close, but they do crisscross. Expenditures begin to exceed revenues in 2021. Therefore, you see the gray bars begin to decline as we eat into our cash balance. Now, one of the things that we like to use the forecast for is to look for some early warning signs about, financial issues that might require our attention and some change in behavior. So one of them is days of cash balance. So this graph is really a combination of two different ways to look at things, and I'm going to talk to you first about the solid lines, the two solid lines, the yellow solid line with data points highlighted, and the blue solid line, which is just a horizontal line. Those two go together, and the yellow line represents the percent of expenditures as a percent of revenue. So the blue line represents 100%, meaning they're equal. We don't build a cash balance, we don't eat into our cash balance. So when that yellow line is above the blue line, in other words, expenditures represent more than 100% of our revenues, we start to eat into our cash balance. And so you can see for the years 17, 18, 19, and a little bit in 20, because expenditures are less than 100% of revenues, we tend to build cash balance. And then it crosses over in 21, and now it's above, it's more than 100%. So we begin to eat into our cash balance. Just one graphical way we look at it. There's a little bit of inside baseball of what we do in our fun and spare time up on the third floor here as we try and analyze this. The dotted lines represent days of cash available. Our target typically in our discussions has been 30 days cash, and that's represented by the orange dotted line. And it's horizontal again because this isn't dollars, this is actual days. How many days in cash do we have? And I knew 30, we might want to look at a different metric to see if we get a different kind of an early warning indicator. The other evening at when we were over at Downtown High School and you were doing your goal setting, I saw someone wrote up on one of the charts 6 months, and I quite frankly thought that was, from a finance guy, I'd go, hey, that's great, let's keep 6 months on hand. Probably not where we're headed. I picked 90 days just to see what that would look like. And 90 days is the 3 months of cash. And that actually, 90 days is being discussed by GFOA as a potential change in best practices from 30 to 90. So we plug in 90 days there, and the blue dotted line represents the projected 3 years of actual, and then the projected days of cash on hand. So you can see that it climbs in 18, and then climbs again in 19. We go above 90 days, and then we drop down, and in 2025, we drop below 30 days cash. So as an early warning indicator, and I'm going to say, assuming that we're looking at a 2020 ballot initiative, when do you want to see that early indicator? Which indicator would give you some forewarning that you might want to think about being on the ballot? Well, if you look at 2025, that's actually 5 years after the year in which you'd put an issue on the ballot. And if you think about it, in this forecast, when we're 1 year away from the November ballot, 2025 isn't even on a forecast. It's only here because I trend it, I put it there. So is that really an early enough indicator? Not so sure. Look at 90 days, though. We begin to drop down closer to 90 days, beginning in 2020, next year, and in the next year after that, we drop below 90 days. Kind of gives you a heads up that maybe a year earlier, a year from that, before that, you might want to look at being on the ballot. A little bit better of an early warning indicator that something's on the horizon you might want to react to. So these are all just things that we're going to discuss about at finance, I'm sure, but just trying to throw out some other things that you can look at. So just some discussion about other early warning indicators. As I mentioned, expenditures begin to exceed revenues in fiscal 21. At the end of 23, which is our end of our current forecast and what will be on file with the Ohio Department of Education, we'll have about 60 days of operating cash. The indication, as I mentioned, will drop below the 30-day in fiscal 25. Then in 2027, although it's not on any of these graphs, but you can simply look at it and know that in 2027 we would be projecting a deficit balance. What the size of it is, don't know, didn't run it out that far. I just know it drops below. So looking at a plot of our cash balance, the orange line, 30 days cash. Now this is the actual dollars that equate to 30-day cash, so you can see it kind of climbs over time. And then the blue line represents the excess of revenues over expenditures. In other words, as it rises, we build cash balance, and as it declines, we're eating into our cash balance. You'll see that, again, as I said, in the first year, right there, that's when expenditures exceed revenues. That's where we drop below 30 days cash out in 2025. And then I circled 2026 because that's the last year we're positive. 2027 is off the graph. We also highlight this in terms of when you pass an operating levy, if you're on a 4-year cycle, that levy is intended to fund 4 fiscal years. When we voted in 16, you're in the middle of fiscal year 17, so you're really not funding that year. So you voted in 16 to fund fiscal years 18, 19, 20, and 21. And then if you vote in 20, the idea would be that you're in the middle of fiscal year 21. You're really trying to fund 22, 23, 24, and 25 to just give you a picture of those levy cycles. So based upon this projection, it's clear that we have a balance at the end of 2023. So it did fund it. We did manage our finances to get through 2021, I mean. And now we're looking forward to what's the next levy cycle going to look like. Because I started to look at different days of cash, I wanted to go back and see historically how this played out and kind of infer, what were we doing back when and why did things come out the way they were. So I backed up to the beginning data that I have, which is fiscal year 2012, and added that to my previous graph of cash balance and 30 days cash and the 90 days cash. Now this is in terms of dollars, not days, a little bit different. So you see that the 90 days cash line climbs and the 30-day cash line climbs. So this is all in millions of dollars. It's interesting, once again, 18, 19, 21 and on out looks pretty much the same. But I'm trying to get a feel for just historically, where do we typically operate? Does that help us pick a metric? And you can see in 12, 13, 14, 15, and well, all the way to 17. We operate with about 60 days cash at the end of the year. Last levy we passed was 2008. 2008 would be intended to fund 10, 11, 12, and 13. So we went 14, 15, 16, and 17, maintaining 60 days cash. So as you all know, the only way we manage our cash balance is through a revenue increase with revenues or expenditures or a combination of the two of them. So during that time period, if we did not have an injection of revenue, and as I said before, and even in this forecast you see, typically expenditures grow at a rate faster than your revenues do. How in the world do we manage 14, 15, 16, and 17 and keep that there? Thank you. You have to control your expenses and control / cut somewhere along the line. So you manage that, and then we had a plan for 16 to build academic programs, to add staff, to do something different, and then we get back into a cycle of build the balance, and then after time you'll eat into that balance. So I thought this was just a very interesting picture that, as I've always said, the numbers that we keep and the numbers that we prepare and the numbers that we present and the numbers that we analyze are just artifacts of our behavior. So you look at this and you look at the graph and go, what was going on there? And then we all get together and try and decipher that. But I thought this was a very interesting picture. And maybe, if it's not, 30 days might be too late of an early warning signal. Maybe 60 would be a better target. And certainly 90 would be a great early warning indicator. So we'll talk about that, but I thought the data was very interesting. So here's some, I think, rather large unknowns and uncertainties facing us in the near term. First, the Dominion North Brookhaven cost. It was, talked about at FAC, presented at a board meeting, subject of a special board meeting, and I'm kind of waiting to hear. You heard my suggestion, and it's up to debate. That's up to all of you. The state budget and a possible new school funding formula. We have Cupp-Patterson, we have the governors, we've got the sub-bill, right? That's the way to refer to it, and more changes to come. That's a big variable. We're in the throes of collective bargaining with the Teachers Association, and I'm sure the other teachers union and the other union and associations will follow thereafter. Clearly, since that represents a significant portion of our expenditures, changes to that agreement that aren't reflected in the forecast will have an impact. And then, it's not, I don't want to say what it said, last but not least, certainly probably this should have been at the top, because as we're learning in our group sessions together, academic performance and academic program is why we're here. It's why we're here. So what Dr. Dixon and her team decide to do with academic program is an unknown. It is an uncertainty. We're working on that. She's working on that. And so as that comes out and we assess the impact of that financially in order to achieve the academic gains and outcomes that we all desire, that will certainly be an impact on the forecast as well. So those are my assumptions, our assumptions, if you will, as we built this forecast. Some of the uncertainty and unknowns that we live in. It's a picture based upon all of that, and we go forth tomorrow and operate with the best information we have tomorrow. So, Mr. President, that concludes my presentation on the 5-year forecast. I would be more than glad to attempt to answer any questions you have. The only thing I can't do is tell you, the one thing I can tell you for certain is that the first 3 years of the forecast won't change, because that's history. And that what we actually end up with will be different than what's presented tonight. So I think we've done, I'm real pleased with the forecast and how it's presented. I'm pleased with our understanding of how we got from point A to point B. And I think with all the input that I've had from staff, this is a pretty good picture today. Tomorrow morning we'll get up and it'll be a whole new world, I'm sure. So that concludes my presentation on the 5-year forecast. And like I said, I'm more than willing to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Are there questions, colleagues? Mr. Brown?
Yes, and I don't want to get deep into this, but one of the first of those uncertainties that we may get some information about is the state budget. And, you know, we have made an assumption about 4% growth on the cap. And last time, we were somewhat surprised and very disappointed with what the state did relative to our assumption. Obviously, we don't want to get caught like that again. So my question is, and I guess both for you and for Eric, is how do we have enough confidence to peg it at 4%? Or are we just guessing, or do we have enough information that we think that's as good as we can get? I don't want to be too high or too low, but something has given you reasons to make that particular number the assumption.
Yeah, I don't want to be too high or too low either. If I'm too low, there's all sorts of optic ramifications for that. If I'm too high, it has potentially dramatic negative consequences for academic programming. We're confident because what we've done is attempt to read the tea leaves in both formulas as been presented, and we've had to make some interesting assumptions about how they arrive at a net number. I will just tell you, for some reason, they like to I always say puke out a number, and that's not the right way to say it. They spit out this number at the end of a simulation, and they go, oh, you're going to get 16 million more. And I'm like, 16 million more than what? And how did we get there? So Eric and I really have spent a lot of time and gone through multiple iterations. We do a whole set of assumptions. Well, if this is true, well, what's that do to revenue? And then what's that do to deduct? Like, for instance, one of the things we have to do is look at community schools. And so if one model says the formula stays the same, we have to assume that the individual items stay the same, but it's still going to vary because of the number of kids. So I had to go back and look at, okay, how much was in the forecast based upon changes in kids versus changes in dollar amount, factor that out, come up with a new net number, how does it compare? So when we looked at all of that, we felt that assuming that we've assumed correctly, that 4% could be, pretty close. It wasn't like we were here and the formulas were down here and we were, 100 million short or something. It wasn't that dramatic. But we're to be quite frank, because it's so assumption based, we're not bringing in, our models. It's like looking at our hand scratches on, we did it in spreadsheets, but it's just, we do something and go, I don't think that's quite right, so we'd redo it. After all those iterations and all that conversation, that's why we said, look, this is as good a guess as we can have. It's a very educated guess. I don't know, Eric, do you have any thoughts about how you decipher what's going to happen at the State House?
Thank you very much. If I had that crystal ball, boy, we'd be really doing well. We would be consulting.
With all due respect, as much as we love you guys, if we could do that, we'd be out of here.
I think.
If you really had that crystal ball, you'd be chewing glass.
Yeah. President Baker to Board Member Brown, I think part of the difference we see this time is as we went into the as-introduced version, even in the last General Assembly with House Bill 49, we had assumed 7.5%, and we started off at 5%. So we started off behind and never really kind of clawed out from behind that as we saw a lot of the interplay with some of the income tax reductions that had been made in previous General Assemblies and kind of that interplay with the tax law. That, that's kind of they didn't do that in House Bill 49, so we don't have that issue still hanging out there. We are seeing some revenue increase based upon all the models, what that means, what that is. At least it's an increase. We're going in the right direction. But as the treasurer has indicated, we still have more iterations to go. We just got, just this evening, and as we were sitting here, the House Finance Committee voted it out of committee. I haven't seen what that vote is yet. I've seen some of the omnibus amendments, at least in synopsis format. What does that language look like? What's that interplay? I know what I'm doing tomorrow is really spend a lot of time with that. Then the Senate gets its shot, and it'll do its sub-bill, and it'll get its omnibus amendment, and then we'll have its standalone amendments. And then my favorite part, conference committee. So we'll get into the conference committee at that particular point in time where we will see new revenue estimates, revised revenue estimates from both OBM and LSC. They'll be closer to the tail end of the fiscal year, so they'll have a better picture of where the state is and what its carryover may be. Keep in mind that in this particular budget right now, at least in the as-introduced version, they're anticipating that carryover goes into this new Clean Ohio Fund. What changes have been made really at this point in the House version, to be determined, still have to go in and look, but they're going to look at where we are at the end of the fiscal year. They're going to look and see where their projections are in terms of both revenue, expenditures, Medicaid caseloads, and then in conference committee, anything's fair game. It could be the House version, the Senate version, the governor's version, or some brand new version that we have never seen before. That's how the process works. So I think, and then add to that the governor has the line on veto ability. I think I've counted about 7 different points yet that this can change in the next month and a half. And also keep in mind that the House is a little behind. Typically, they would have this, the Senate would already have the bill. That's not going to get to them until sometime tomorrow. Now, they've already started informal hearings at least, so they've had some. They've gone through kind of the main testimony from all the various agencies at this point. But now everybody's going to come over and say what they like and don't like about what the House passed. And the Senate will get its shot at what that formula is going to look like. Which version are we going with? Is Patterson get another shot? Is it going to be continue to work off of the governor's plan? Will it be something entirely different? Will it be some combination? Remains to be seen. All of that to really say we still really don't know, but we feel a little bit better because last GA we saw already a downward trend with continued discussions of downward trends, whereas we're not hearing that and seeing that at this particular point in time.
And I will say that we're kind of a step down in this discussion in terms of we're looking at what has been proposed versus what we have in the forecast. But if you step back a little bit and talk about where did these formulas start from and what do they assume, we have some, I'll say, philosophical issues with models that start with our net number that incorporate or institutionalize the cap, that could incorporate or institutionalize the inequitable funding for us for charter schools, And another model that may or may not do that, but in their own formula, we're one of 2 schools that remain capped. And rest assured, I'm not a quiet person in the room when the word cap comes up. So there's that discussion that we've had in terms of how do you come up with a formula, and then also what we've done here lately to try and get a, given all of this, okay, we might not like how this works, but given that, we still have to put a forecast together. We still have to run the school district. What number do we, what number do you like? And that's what we're doing tonight. But the other part, there's still this other philosophical issue going on. And again, none of that may happen. Who knows where we'll end up. So I just wanted to let you know that we're really having kind of 2 different conversations to try and make our case known. And I can get on, I've gotten on a soapbox at some meetings when they're trying to patiently get me to jump on their school bus, when I don't think it's the same treatment for our 50,000 kids. I invited them to come with me to an elementary school and explain to my elementary children why they're not worth as much as the other elementary children. That's that discussion, and I'll stay off of that. But we're working on it. But anyway, in answer to your question, having done all this, we're at least, we don't have any indications that right off the start, as Eric said, that we're way off the mark.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Board Member Gibbs?
Mr. Ragland, will you first? Oh, no. So, Board Member Brown took the words right out of my mouth. The first thing I wrote as a note is we're removing the conservative nature. And so, parlaying off of that last question, the conservative approach has worked for us in so many years. And so I understand trying to get an accurate picture, but how do we protect ourselves and shield ourselves from risk with such a new administration, a new kind of new people all the way around? How much less of conservatism are we going to have? Because it has bode well for us.
Well, as I said, we revised those revenue and expenditure projections about $20 million each way. So we've got that each year, that swing has built up. So over that 5-year period, you're looking at we pulled out about a couple $100 million, or added back in, however you want to look at it, $200 million at the end of this five-year period. I think if you recall in previous projections, there was a time when we probably projected about $165 million deficit. And I didn't raise any flags about that because I felt, given to our conservative nature, that would organically work itself out. It's only when it went to $300 or $400 million that I went, we need to make an adjustment, which we did. As you can see, the ship kind of righted itself there, and we're going to end this levy period with that 60-day balance. So, how much have we moved out? Yeah, I would, or removed from the conservative, I would say that $200 million over that 5-year period.
Okay, I'm a fan of conservatism, so in that realm, not the rest of those.
Sure.
But fiscally, just keep us abreast of how, to make sure that projection and what we're thinking from the state. I remember when it was off, and when we do have to correct the budget, or quite frankly, how did we keep our spending in check? We laid off people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was necessary. It was that was our stewardship responsibility, but it has real life impact. So every number has a face behind it. And as early as we can think about what we need to do, if we're looking at any of those types of moves, just keep us abreast. The earlier we know, as we're shaping and building this new administration, then the better. I think people, not to send folk into a panic, but just so that we can be prepared. And I like being prepared fiscally and being able to maintain that. My second question is on the slide where you had
property tax, and you said we're measuring this in tens of millions and not hundreds of millions. Can you restate why we were doing that on that slide?
Oh, that's just the level of that line item.
Okay.
That line item was in tens of millions. It's a 30 million or 40 million versus when we talk about property taxes and state revenue, we're talking about 400 million or 350 million. I was just saying, just so that you knew, look at the graph. It tells you real quick that we've gone from two very significant line items. And I realize, $10 million to everybody is like, oh, wow, that's a big deal. But relative to our budget, those kind of the smaller line items that we look at. So that, and in FAC, one of the things I do is I point to variances both in terms of dollar amount and percentage. And we kind of the triggers that we have is $5 million or more than, I forget what the percentage is, more than 5% maybe. I think I picked 2 5s, just as my own arbitrary trigger point. And so that focuses on our attention on when do we want to look at a variance. That's all I'm trying to do is focus your attention on the really important items in our budget that we'd want to spend the most time talking about.
Okay, and it wasn't that we had gone from 100 to tens?
No.
So that was,
no,
okay.
No, it's just a graphical issue.
Thank you. That next question, on the slide about capital outlays, and you talk about it being relatively flat, but as we are right now contemplating the move of Columbus North, Global, Dominion, and that sort, do we need to think differently and forecast differently if we anticipate there may be one or two other moves in the future like that, and that we can look to the capital fund as opposed to the general fund to be the resources if we needed to do that? Do you think that's a significant amount of money that we should project in the capital outlay budget? Because that 30 million number, that was a shocker. So, and then saying it's coming out of general fund, which we hadn't done traditionally nor historically. So as we're looking at this capital outlay budget, did you have discussion of anticipating or projecting maybe one of those or two of those in the next 5 years that we might also do if we did another building merger? Or do you think moving that line item, or do you think you would do that after a 2020 forecast?
Okay. Let me just clarify one thing. The line in all of this is general fund. So that line called capital outlay is just the accounting term for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. That's all that is. Trucks, whatever. Okay. That's what that is. The capital budget is a whole different set of funds. It's a whole different checkbook, if you will. So our capital budget is Operation Fix-It. Our capital budget is the half-mil PI levy that was approved. Our capital budget is the sale of building funds. So relative to this forecast, did we contemplate any other moves that would require significant capital outlay? No. When we get around to, you guys can join us to talk about capital funding and a true capital budget, then yes, that kind of discussion would be warranted. And the reason why the 30 million recommendation for me was because there had not been a capital plan to address that. The decision was made in February. Immediate action I felt was necessary, so I gave you an immediate answer and an immediate source of funds for that. Happened to be general fund. So answer to your question, no, those kind of moves aren't contemplated in this budget. Yes, they should be contemplated in the capital budget, absolutely.
But we're taking this, but this proposal for the current proposal for Brookhaven North and Dominion is out of general fund dollars.
Right, and it's not factored into this forecast at all, because you haven't approved it.
Got it. So my question still remains. Should we look at that moving forward?
Oh.
We're looking at this, you understand what I'm saying?
I do now, I do now.
You understand?
So the answer to that is, obviously as soon as you decide about Brookhaven North and Dominion, that's going to affect this. But as far as future moves, that's part of a facility plan that's coming up. And yes, you should consider that when you start looking at a 2020 bond issue. Absolutely.
But, and so my question is, we know we're going to look at the facilities under the bond program, but should we be looking at increasing or factoring anything that might come out of this capital outlay fund, like the current Brookhaven North and Dominion that's going to come out of general fund?
My recommendation would be no. My recommendation was that if you plan on doing that, you find a capital funding mechanism. Put another PI levy on the ballot for continuing funds to address something like this. That bond issue probably is going to be more of a OFC bond issue type of long-term capital funding. So if you want to look at things like consolidations and trying to fund that, I'd recommend we talk about a PI kind of levy. Like we're doing for life cycle replacement issues. I would not recommend doing it in the general fund because it's, as you mentioned, this is the first time we said let's take a big chunk out of the general fund. So I wouldn't plan on it for the general fund. I would ask that you consider that as part of your overall capital funding planning, or whether it's the OFC bond issue and facility master plan, or another look at what we need from a PI levy standpoint. Our half-mil PI levy, very nice. It's wonderful. $4.5 million roughly a year. That's great. We probably need 40 million. We're a very large organization. So yes, did that answer it? I think I understand exactly what you're saying, and I'm saying let's do all of that in capital funding.
Yeah. What I heard you say, I asked my question, and what I heard you say is in the future, you would not recommend taking it out of the general fund, but moving these type of costs into our bond levy.
Absolutely.
And getting it paid for out of there. My last question is on your last slide where you talk about the cash balances, and you did 3 or 4 simulations of cash balances. Should we anticipate a recommendation coming from you? I heard you reference FAC committee, so should we anticipate a recommendation coming from that committee for an official 30, 60, 90 day?
Target?
Yeah, target. I mean, I heard you say it. After one slide is when you mention it, but when you get to the third slide, you get the sense that you're trying to bring home a point. So should we anticipate that we're going to get a vote, or are you ask, what is the action item behind that? I just want to know, are you going to ask us to say we want to shoot for a 60-day cash balance, 90-day? What should we anticipate from that?
Yeah, and thanks for running me down the road on that one. I'm trying to slowly guide you down to a cash balance policy, yes.
Okay.
And see what best practices are. I've not found a cash balance policy I particularly care for. You have to decide a little bit, what kind of guidance does it provide? I'm not a big fan of a policy that dictates a trigger. I kind of liken it, you might not recall this, but the Federal Reserve in setting their rate and their target rates, they stopped giving a specific rate and started giving ranges because everybody expected them to do something when unemployment hit a certain rate. They stopped doing that because they didn't want to be forced into having to make some sort of a reaction. So I wouldn't recommend a cash balance policy says that if this, then absolutely this. But got to have something in there to how do I define that guidance? And I don't know what that is yet, but that's a long-winded way of saying you kind of pulled back the curtain on what I have in mind down the road.
The third slide gave it away.
Okay, yeah.
That'll be all. Thank you, President Baker.
Member Ragland?
Thank you. Thank you for a very thorough forecast, Mr. Bohoric. The thing that I have appreciated through this process is your attention to the academic side and the emphasis that you've placed on the words of Mr. Gooding and everyone else that's been guiding you on that piece. You mentioned that the majority of our expenditures come from staffing. And to that point, I believe that my question probably would be better suited for Dr. Dixon around that piece. My colleague has mentioned the fact that we did have to lay some individuals off in the past, and from my understanding, also from my conversations with our other colleagues, we probably kept some individuals that probably should not have been kept on as well. And so my question to Dr. Dixon in that vein, are there board policies that restrict your ability to right-size staff and make sure that you have the team that you need in order to produce the academic program that will help feed Mr. Bohorik's information that he needs to kind of give us some accurate numbers?
A response, or would you like to contemplate and follow up with the board members subsequent to tonight's meeting?
I'll follow up with you. We have some conversation around that. But the answer is there are some concerns about some current policies.
Then I'll withhold my
Okay,
next
very
questions
good.
until after we get, thank you.
Just for the viewing and listening audience, when we did the, not right sizing, but when we were going through those budget processes, there were staff and building closures. And one of the things about as we move forward, unlike some other cities around the country that didn't prune kind of as they grow, we wanted smart growth. And so we closed maybe 1 or 2 buildings a year, right? Which had staff and people associated with it, did some time of reorganization, did some major pieces. And we did it over years, right? So that we could stay in line with our expenses and with those 5-year forecasts from our treasurers. And we saw, unfortunately, some of our colleagues who did not do that, who at one time had to close 31 schools in their district, 43 students in cities like St. Louis and Detroit and some other places. And so our smart growth strategy then was 1 or 2 here, 1 or 2 there, with staff, with some positions, with some expenses, with some things that we stopped doing. And so what you're seeing now is not one major position of, oh, did we get rid of, this person or that person, but really reorganizing over time and every year when we got to the budget process. And it was painful, but giving people a lot of time, using our attrition to help absorb some of those people, but really, in some years, cutting down tight and cutting to the bone. It was that, but I really just wanted to add it was buildings in there too.
I understand that. I think for me, and I think as we're having all of these discussions, and he's also expressed to us tonight that, our heavy contemplation around the need or the desire to go back to the public for more resources. For my part, we've got a new leader here that, and he mentioned her academic program and what we're doing with her academic program, going through that strategic planning process. We may produce something that we're all going to get behind to push out to the public that will be a major part of what we're leading with if we were to go to the public next year or in years after for revenue. I think for me, that also means that she should have the autonomy to bring in the people that she needs to, in order to execute that program. And if there are policies that we have in place from a board's perspective that limit her ability to do that, I think we need to use our process to review those policies to make certain that she does not have those restrictions. That's all I want.
Thank you, understood. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Mr. Vice President, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to make a statement,
Yes.
President Baker. So when you wear the HR hat, and there's an HR professional in the back, because I know that we have a listening audience, and probably about 99.99% of the companies, anywhere from 70 to 85% of your costs are going to be personnel. That's just the way that organizations work. Your other expenses, and you can correct me, your other expenses are going to be your heating, your light, your bills, your utilities, and then some infrastructure. But and that's why when you look at cuts, unfortunately, that's where they are felt the hardest because that's your largest expense. When we made those cuts, they weren't only in personnel. There were some program cuts that occurred because you cut a program. You know, programs are expensive, they are costly. Some deferred maintenance, that's why we had to do a levy. So there was a lot of other things that kind of went into it. So I didn't want to just leave that hanging out there and making that assumption. And, you know, in most organizations, at board organizations, the superintendent makes the recommendations for hires and firing. So I think as we look at policies, we also want to maintain that we understand and the viewing audience understands that the superintendent makes those recommendations. So a lot of times people will come and say, well, you fired, la, la, la. It's like, technically we take the leadership of our organization that lives with those folks every day and sees and evaluates, and they make a recommendation, and then we determine and evaluate that recommendation and move that forward. So just wanted to make sure that we had clarity.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions germane to the five-year forecast presentation from the treasurer?
No, just very briefly.
Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just very briefly, I really appreciate the fact that there's been considerable looking at the budget from a behavioral standpoint, and where I appreciate your comments deeply on what you don't necessarily prefer as kind of the go-to space and how you address our budget and forecasting. They play a considerable role in how we look at those touch point areas. So if you're talking about the variance of 5% above or below, and saying that anything beyond that, yeah, now we need to raise an eyebrow and think about from a preparatory standpoint on how we address that. These are key assumptions that we as FAC, and working directly with the budget director and our treasurer, take into deep consideration. So what he's done is giving you a very good picture over the next 8 years about where we can look at some things and have some early warning signs about where the landmine is. And fortunately for us, we can see some things early in advance. Now, with regards to, there was an earlier statement made about, and I want to give added clarity to it. There was an earlier statement made about a shock of what the state cut when they cut our cap, when they lowered our cap, 3%. I'll speak for myself. I was not shocked. We knew the environment was looking at cuts. We knew that that General Assembly at that time was looking at cutting the district. What we did not know was to the effect of how much. And we spent a lot of time speculating around what that could be, what that iteration could possibly look like on our end, and what those presumptive effects could be. But again, that's just the horrible kind of way that we work with the state legislature, where we don't literally find out until the last minute when they finally decide to tell us what it's going to be. So we're always going to be at the unfortunate whim, it seems in my mind, the unfortunate whim of figuring out where they're going to be with us. We're at one point in time 46, 47% funded, our budget, by the state. We have dropped 10 points. To date, that's 38%. Am I wrong?
We're still projecting about 45, 46%.
With the state?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last numbers I saw, we were at 38% funding from the state, if I was correct. And the rest of the bill was picked up by the general public, by our local taxpayers through their property.
Is that a question, Mr. Vice
Yes,
President?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Just point of clarification.
Yeah, the chart that I had, about 53, 54% local, 38 to 41% in state revenues
Thank you.
over this 5-year period.
Thank you.
The remaining being about 6 or 7% in all the other locals, yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
So again, it's just that situation where we're constantly at their whim in terms of waiting on what they are going to appropriate us when they try to figure out, you know, a new formula of how they're going to fund us. But at the end of the day, what we're doing on our end to make sure we're looking at that is working closely with the superintendent's office on where they want to make appropriations towards academic programming. They've given us, and we walked through that committee, they gave us a very clear picture, came back to us and said, hey, we'd like to make some further investment in some categorical areas in the academic budget. We said, okay, and we presented that back to the board. So I just want to make sure that, and reiterate the fact that we are working to make sure that there are early warning signs. If we need to find a clearer way to do that, I'm happy to make sure we do that. In addition to that, that we are working closely with the administration to figure out what the other ongoing priorities are going to be, so that we're clear with the strategic plan, for example, where we're going to move forward and how that may impact the 5-year forecast. So thank you for that, Mr. President.
Yes, sir. Any other questions or comments related to the treasurer's report? All right, Mr. Treasurer.
I'm just going to use another term, and that's called financial sustainability, if you will. One of the goals of mine is to do financial planning to sustain and support the academic program, to stabilize that, so that you're not in an add, subtract, add, subtract, add, subtract, add, subtract kind of a academic program mode. I don't think that's what we all want to see. We want to be able to say, if this is our academic programming and this is what that looks like over time, what do we need to do from financial planning to support and sustain that? So I'll pull the curtain back. A commitment to a 4-year levy cycle. It would permit me to talk about levies every 4 years. I'm beginning to do that. But if we have a commitment to that, that's a big commitment that helps us financially plan to sustain the academic program over time. Heretofore, we put this together, I'd look out further and go, I don't know if I could talk about the next levy, because it's always, you know, what's it going to be and how much and when, and just like state funding, that's one of those variables that I don't know exactly what it is, but you know that there is an early indicator. Warning makes it sound bad, I think. Maybe I shouldn't use early warning. I'll just call it an early indicator of a need to do something. And that's what we're trying. That's why I want to get financial sustainability to support that academic program over a long term, because I don't like to see this add and subtract and add and subtract. I don't think that's a good operating model. Anyway, I just throw that term out. Thank you.
Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. I'm just going to add, to Stan's point, is aligning both, right? It shouldn't be a financial plan here and an academic plan here. They should both be aligned. And I think that's what we are working towards, that alignment, changing the behaviors of our team and being clear about what we need in the organization to move the organization forward.
Any other questions or comments relative to the treasurer's report? Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. We will vote. We expect to vote on the forecast at the next meeting. So if you do have any other questions, please do speak with the treasurer prior to that meeting so you are fully prepared to cast your vote. And let's move on then to our consent agenda. Colleagues, any item, any piece of legislation you have any questions or comment on related to the consent agenda this evening? If not, is there a motion that we accept it as presented?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair? That motion carried.
Thank you very much. Yes, that's for you. So let's move on then to announcements, points of pride. Colleagues, I think we may have some photos from, maybe, photos from the I Know I Can Read to Succeed Week at Southwood Elementary. So I'll tell you, I never had so much fun with a classroom full of second graders. We read this book, actually, which is provided by I Know I Can, and had an awesome time. And bright kids, great teacher, great administrator there at that building. These kids are smart. They're way ahead of where I was at that age. And then there was the big group hug at the end, so we all had just a great time. So thanks to I Know I Can and everybody who's involved in this all week, Read to Succeed Week. I know some of you colleagues plan to read, and I know we have other staff that are reading, so I highly recommend. Yes, please do get pictures. Yeah, great class. And then, colleagues, any other? Again, so it's prom time. So, and prom can be very dangerous. You could wear a tuxedo that looks like that, for example. So just be on your lookout. You know, students are out. It's prom time. So just be careful. Watch for that. And it's a great time for, you can take that picture away now. It's a great time for our students to celebrate. But what I want to challenge you all who are laughing to do is to bring in your prom picture, junior or senior prom, and submit those to Mr. Varner. In fact, anybody in the room, please feel free to submit a prom picture to Mr. Varner, and we will choose some and show them at the next meeting. So you stopped laughing then, didn't you? Sorry.
Hey, Dr. Stanford had the coolest one though. Yeah.
No, that's not his wife. Don't mention that. Another thing I wanted to say. What idea, Mr. Brown? Prom?
Prom pictures.
Do you have one?
That almost 50 years ago.
It was a few years ago, yes. So, yes, you're exempt if you don't have one, of course. Next thing I wanted to share, we have honors and recognitions coming up. May 15th, it's going to be at Moulton High School. It'll be a great opportunity for us to recognize students and staff and community partners. And if you have not yet, you still have the opportunity to nominate students or staff or community partners. I know I've spoken to some of you about individuals who would be good to be recognized that night. So if you haven't done that, please do follow up with Dr. Stanford on that. It's not too late to nominate. Any other points of pride, comments? Board Member Adair?
Give a shout out to all the students that competed in the robotics competition. That was also the day of the cleanup, and it was amazing. We had tons of kids there. They were so proud of their robots. I don't know who won, but they're all winners in my book. And the second thing I just wanted to make sure everyone knew about is the Councilmember Emmanuel Ramey from our city council has a contest for our kids. And the city wants our kids to come up with a mascot to highlight the new Cleaner Columbus campaign. It's only for our kids. So I need all the teachers to get involved. And here's the really cool thing. For the winning student, the school gets $1,500 in the student's name to support arts, education, or environmental sustainability. And then the second and third place schools get $500. So the city is being a really awesome partner with us to promote these things. And the deadline is really short, though, and I know we're at the very end of the year. So applications have to be submitted by May 17th, and the information is online, and I believe we're sharing that information as well. So it's only for our kids, right? And so we need kids to participate so our schools can get some extra money, and we want to thank our partners at City Council for that opportunity.
Well, thank you. Board Member Reyes?
Yes, thank you, President Baker. So I just wanted to make sure that we invited everybody this Saturday to our own program. So for about the 7th year, we are celebrating National Children's Day in the district this Saturday from 10 a.m. There'll be free activities, performances, and fun for the families and children at 7 different sites across the district. Our schools are challenging each other to have the best Children's Day in the district. So there's a whole list of schools: Briggs High School, Columbus Global, Brookhaven, Dominion Middle School, East High School, Fort Hayes, which Dr. Ruffin believes he's going to have the best one, Marion Franklin, Centennial. There's information on our social media. For those who are unaware and are new to that concept is, as we know, we want to make sure that our whole community sees the talent that our children have. So we're celebrating our children. They have an opportunity to sing, to dance, to clap their hands, to do whatever they feel is their talent. And these are kindergarten all the way till 12th grade. And we have the 12th graders helping the kindergartners. We have community partners that come in and talk to our students and the attendees about what they do. So we've had the Columbus SWAT team, we've had United Way, we had the Red Cross, and just several different partners that come in and just have a good time. But most importantly, the reason that Children's Day was developed is because we heard from our community that they felt that they wanted access to our schools that are in their community, and they wanted to come in and see what's going on down the street and perhaps become volunteers and be part of our district. So we ask everyone, whether you have a child in the district or not, we invite you to join us to celebrate our children that live in your community and be a part of what we represent and the spirit of success within our district. So again, this Saturday, Children's Day, 10 to 2 p.m. Look at our social media on our district sites and you'll get more information.
Thank you, Board Member Reyes, and thank you for your leadership chairing the committee that brings us Children's Day every year. Board Member Gibbs.
Yes, thank you. Just a reminder and a bit of a change that Tuesday, May 14th is our Innovation and Reform Committee meeting. It's normally at 5:30, but we might need to move that to 5 p.m. And so we plan to meet somewhere between 5 and 6:30 on the 14th. The same evening is the King Arts Gala, and it's the community recognition of community leaders and service and programs, and there'll be a few, I believe, of our students that will be there. So Innovation and Reform will be backed up about a half hour so we can get through our tasks.
Ms. Gibbs?
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other announcements or points of pride? Mr. Vice President, have you a resolution to offer, or a motion to offer?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. President. It is recommended that the Board of Education recess into executive session per Section 121.22G1 Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment or compensation of public employees, and Section 121.22G4 to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Ms. Adair? Yes. And President Baker?
Yes.
The motion.
Thank you. The board will now recess into executive session. Thank you for being here this evening. Have a good night.